Welcome to my channel. In my channel, you can watch various type of fiction and fantasy audiobook. If you want more video like this, please subscribe my channel.
High School DxD, 3 Years of Cohabitation. Part 7. Rizvam Levon Lucifer died too quickly, which was a bit beyond his expectations. It seemed someone had suddenly intervened. Was it a Juka Beelzebub, or Indra's disciple, that Cao Cao who wielded the true Longinus? He had been focusing all his attention on the Red Dragon Emperor just now, so he hadn't paid much attention to the situation over there. But since Rizvam Levon Lucifer was already dead, there was no need to continue with certain things. There was no need to keep entangling himself with the Red Dragon Emperor. Shiva turned to leave. However, at this moment, Luo Yu deactivated the sacred juggernaut drive of the boosted gear and called out to stop him. Shiva, I've always been wondering. What is so good about that guy Rizvam Levon Lucifer that makes him worth offending the entire underworld for? If I said it was to maintain a certain balance in the three realms, would you believe it? Shiva stopped and replied indifferently. Believe it. How could I not? Luo Yu smiled. Then, the conversation took a turn, and his tone instantly turned cold. Then, you ambushed Odin and caused his fall. Was that also for that righteous-sounding balance you speak of? As soon as these words fell, Shiva's expression changed drastically. A terrifying power of destruction surged out like a tidal wave, instantly locking down the entire space where he and Luo Yu were, along with the void itself. A terrifying pressure rolled over Luo Yu in wave after wave. At this moment, Luo Yu finally truly witnessed Shiva's strength. This guy was more than twice as strong as a super devil on the level of Hades. No wonder he dared to be the first to make a move against Odin. If he remembered correctly, it was he who had pierced through Odin's body with his bare fists back then. In the operation to ambush Odin, this guy deserved at least half the credit. Red Dragon Emperor, tell me. Where did you learn about this? Shiva's voice was as cold as a knife, exploding in Luo Yu's ears. A cold sneer hung on Luo Yu's face, and his tone was full of mockery. What? You dare to do it but not admit it. Stop acting like a gentleman. Facing Shiva, an existence far superior to himself, he showed no signs of fear. Shiva stood in the center of the void eroded by the power of destruction. Whenever the surrounding space tried to repair itself, it would be torn apart by the residual aura of destruction. Healing, shattering, healing again, shattering again. It repeated in a cycle, forming a completely void region. Anything that approached would be ground into nothingness by this power. Shiva's expression was terrifyingly gloomy, and the killing intent in his eyes as he looked at Luo Yu was completely undisguised. At this moment, this god of destruction had completely made up his mind to kill. The fact that he had ambushed Odin must absolutely not get out. Otherwise, the prestige of the entire Hindu pantheon would collapse. The three of them, as supreme gods, would become rats crossing the street that everyone wanted to beat. This was a consequence he couldn't afford to bear, and the Hindu pantheon certainly couldn't either. Luo Yu tilted his head and asked curiously, I just don't understand, Odin didn't have any deep grudge against you, did he? Was it necessary to stab him in the back after he sealed the Beast Emperor? This isn't something someone of your status should do. Shiva replied coldly, Odin was too strong. The balance of power in the three realms was broken by him alone. He had to die. His killing intent grew stronger as he looked at Luo Yu. This Red Dragon Emperor knew far more than he had anticipated. He had originally thought the other party had only accidentally learned some superficial details. But he hadn't expected him to be clear even on the details of sealing the Beast Emperor. This made Shiva even more determined about one thing. The Red Dragon Emperor had to be eliminated. However, a lingering doubt remained in his heart. Who exactly had leaked this information to him? Was it Luff? Or Aton? Or perhaps, when the Red Dragon Emperor ambushed Hades, he had found some remaining clues from him. Shiva's thinking was completely different from that of Valley and the others. From beginning to end, he had never suspected the heaven. He didn't believe that in the ancient era, anyone could have bypassed the perception of the six of them and peeked at the truth of that battle. Even if heaven truly hid the power and trump cards left behind by Odin, he didn't believe it. In his mind, the one who leaked the secret must have been one of the six super devils who participated in the ambush at the time. Luff and Aton weren't stupid enough for that. Thinking it over, the most suspicious one was Hades. Shiva already had an idea, it was highly likely that Hades had leaked this. But it was useless to talk about this now. Hades was already dead, and there was no point in pursuing it. The urgent matter was to shut the Red Dragon Emperor's mouth, and the remaining three emperors couldn't be left alive either. Given the Red Dragon Emperor's friendship with them, the news would leak sooner or later. Balance. Luo Yu shook his head, completely disregarding the killing intent rushing at him from Shiva, a mocking smile hanging on the corner of his mouth. You people, you always have to find a nice sounding excuse for everything you do. It's as if what you do is the truth of the three realms, and whoever doesn't listen to you is a troublemaker. It's truly disgusting. Just say it if they were in your way. More than half of the faith in the entire three realms was held by heaven, and back in the ancient era when those gods hadn't fallen, it was even more exaggerated, nearly 80% of it was swallowed by that group of gods. Thinking about it this way, it makes sense that you didn't want those gods to live. Luo Yu looked at Shiva, whose face was livid and who remained silent, and smiled. Shiva, you want to kill me to silence me, but I'm afraid you won't be able to do it today. Seers X Lucifer and the others cannot stop me. Shiva spoke firmly. You also said before that you couldn't stop me from saving Rizvam Levon Lucifer. Yet, Rizvam Levon Lucifer still died. Luo Yu wore a wry expression. HMPH. Shiva couldn't be bothered to waste any more words with Luo Yu, and the power of destruction all over his body surged up like a tidal wave, carrying the momentum to destroy heaven and earth, and struck fiercely toward Luo Yu. If one were to take this blow head on, even a super devil of the level of Hades or Seers X Lucifer would suffer heavy injuries. Judging by this posture, Shiva really wanted to slap Luo Yu to death right here. But Luo Yu had absolutely no intention of blocking, not even using the boosted gear. With his peak mal-level strength, if he were to take this hit, he would undoubtedly die. Shiva couldn't understand what medicine was in the Red Dragon Emperor's gourd. Was he really looking for death? Just as Shiva was stunned for a moment, a petite figure suddenly flashed in front of Luo Yu. That small, delicate hand reached out and tapped lightly. Boom! A terrifying force exploded, and that tide of destruction was directly crushed. Shiva's expression changed drastically. But that power didn't stop, instead, it smashed fiercely toward him. Gritting his teeth, he threw his fists out violently. PFF'd, PFFT, PFFT. Shiva's meager power was like an ant pushing a mountain, it wasn't enough to look at. Like swatting a fly, he was slapped into the ground. Blood sprayed from his mouth as if it were worthless, and his divine body began to crack. Just how vicious that blow was, one could tell just by looking at this miserable state. Luo Yu landed slowly on the ground and looked at Shiva, who was lying on the ground like a broken rag doll. His chest had been pierced through, and both arms were twisted into unrecognizable shapes while blocking the move. Shiva, I told you long ago that you couldn't kill me. Cough, cough, cough. While vomiting blood, Shiva stared fixedly at the petite figure in front of Luo Yu. He was so angry he laughed. Infinite Dragon God Ophis, and Fenrir. Good, very good, very good. Red Dragon Emperor, you win. Shiva would never have imagined that the Infinite Dragon God, that monster, was standing behind the Red Dragon Emperor. That was an existence even more terrifying than a supreme god. Ophis tilted her head and looked at Luo Yu. It was as if this god of destruction from the Hindu pantheon in front of her was just a bug that could be pinched to death at will. Shiva's face changed instantly. If Ophis really wanted to kill him, it wouldn't take any effort at all. He gritted his teeth, forced his broken body to stand, and turned to flee into the distance. Are you not killing him? Ophis looked puzzled. No need. Luo Yu shook his head. It's better to leave this culprit to be dealt with by Michael and the others, we don't need to get involved. Killing Shiva now was not a wise choice. It was enough to deter him. Red Dragon Emperor, what was that just now? At this time, Seers X Lucifer, Cao Cao, and Valley, having finished dealing with the old Satan faction, also arrived here. Looking at the situation, Rizvam Levon Lucifer having suddenly died was likely the work of Cao Cao. Shiva. It was him. Seers X Lucifer and the others were all shocked. Just like when Luo Yu heard it earlier, they never expected that the one who came to save Rizvam Levon Lucifer was actually this god of destruction. What kind of dealings did Rizvam Levon Lucifer have with Shiva? Seers X Lucifer frowned tightly. Rizvam Levon Lucifer was indeed dead, and the underworld had one less big trouble. But by taking this action, Shiva had been dragged into it. The situation was completely beyond expectations. Whether it was good or bad, no one could say. Over in the underworld, Luo Yu's group all had their own schemes and ambitions. No one had the leisure to raise the flag of the Chaos Brigade again. Besides, since even Ophis had been taken away by Luo Yu, even if someone really wanted to rebuild it, it would be useless. The name, Chaos Brigade, had just barely appeared in the three realms before it completely cooled down. On the other side, the matter of Seers x Lucifer and the others secretly mobilizing the demonic Forbidden Army. They could hide it from those pure-blooded devil nobles for a while, but wanting to hide it for a lifetime was a dream. The intelligence networks of these families were not to be trifled with, they had long smelled that something was wrong from various clues. Since it had been exposed, Seers x Lucifer and the others simply didn't hide it anymore. Some things, when hidden and tucked away, were far less deterrent than being laid directly on the table. Immediately after, a piece of news exploded through the entire underworld like a bomb. The old Satan faction and Rizvam Levon Lucifer had been wiped out in one fell swoop by Seers x Lucifer leading the demonic Forbidden Army. Let alone those pure-blooded devil nobles. Even the Baal clan was shocked by the swift and decisive methods of the Numau Castle. They were still fearing the Numau Castle for how they had dared to directly sever connections with the six great noble families before. Who could have thought that Seers x Lucifer and the others had already quietly taken the Forbidden Army and directly wiped out the old Satan faction and Rizvam Levon Lucifer? If it hadn't been for someone discovering the traces of the Forbidden Army's mobilization, they would probably still be kept in the dark until now. With this, many of the heads of the pure-blooded devil families understood. The mark of the first-generation four great demon kings in the underworld had been completely wiped clean. The new four great Satans had established their momentum. From now on, the underworld would be an era where Seers x Lucifer and the others called the shots. With the old Satan faction gone, and Rizvam Levon Lucifer gone, those old fossils who still harbored little schemes in their hearts also became completely obedient. Although it was rumored that this generation's White Dragon Emperor was a descendant of the original Lucifer, unfortunately, he had no interest in that, he had absolutely no desire to get involved in the underworld's messy affairs. Human World, Kuo Town. 3 months had passed since Luo Yu, Sona, and the others returned from the underworld. Sona, Tsubaki Shinra, and Luo Yu had all advanced to the second year. Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka had also officially become first-year students at Kuo Academy. With the start of the school term, the villa suddenly became much quieter. Only Kaneko, Kuroka, Ofus, and that Luo Yu who skipped class almost every day were left. It is worth mentioning that under Kuroka's guidance, Kaneko's progress in Senjutsu was frighteningly fast. At this rate, it shouldn't take long for her to break through and promote to a middle-class devil. It seems that Kaneko's talent for Senjutsu is no worse than Kuroka's at all. Inside the room, Luo Yu said, that guy Shiva went to such great lengths to capture Rizvam Levon Lucifer, this must be the reason, right? Luo Yu sat on the sofa, holding a piece of skin from an unknown creature in his hand. The skin was dark black, with strange patterns on the surface, concealing an indescribable energy within. The most crucial point was that this piece of skin was still alive. Yes, Luo Yu could clearly feel that this thing possessed a form of immortality, very similar to the feeling the origin dragon soul gave him. This fur was obtained from Cao Cao, and it was said to have been kept together with those energy crystals of the old Satan faction. Brother, this thing, it should be the pelt of the Beast Emperor, right? Ddrake's voice sounded in his mind, carrying hesitation. This dragon and Luo Yu had witnessed the Beast Emperor's abilities together in Michael's memory illusion, especially that terrifying immortality. The aura within the fur before them was exactly the same as the Beast Emperor's. Correct, it is indeed the pelt of the Beast Emperor, Luo Yu nodded. And it's not just ordinary skin, the immortality within it can be used as a coordinate to find where the Beast Emperor, sealed by God, is hidden. Ddrake became angry, his voice rising, is Shiva crazy? Does he want to release the Beast Emperor and throw the three realms into chaos again? If the Beast Emperor really escaped, there is no one at the level of God in the three realms now who could press it back down. It might even destroy the entire human world. Luo Yu waved his hand. Shiva isn't that stupid. He knows how dangerous the Beast Emperor is. As long as the Hindu pantheon hasn't completely perished, he wouldn't touch it even if he had the Beast Emperor's coordinates. Using this thing as a trump card to intimidate other pantheons is much more cost-effective than releasing it and having everyone die together. He continued. Besides, Shiva has already reached the end of the path of the Super Devil. For him, the Beast Emperor is also an opportunity to break through his bottleneck. He probably just happened to know that Rizvam Levon Lucifer had the location of the Beast Emperor's seal and didn't realize what kind of object brought this coordinate out. If he had known about the existence of this skin, he wouldn't have been so rash when he came to save Rizvam Levon Lucifer last time. After listening, Ddrake felt that what Luo Yu said made sense. It should be as you say, he chuckled. But brother, the thing that Shiva risked his life for but failed to get, ended up in your hands. Luo Yu smiled. Just a coincidence. He flipped the fur in his hand, examined it carefully for a while, and then stored it inside the boosted gear. The power of the Beast Emperor was indeed something he coveted. But he knew very well how much he was capable of. Luo Yu stared at the pile of energy crystals that looked like a small mountain, making tut-tut sounds. That group from the old Satan faction lost the Devil Civil War so miserably, they must have moved out all the old foundations of the underworld, right? He counted roughly, there had to be at least 2,000 pieces. He could clearly feel that the energy inside these crystals was much more intense than that energy crystal he had swallowed from the Norse pantheon back then. Luo Yu even doubted whether the Norse pantheon's pathetic treasury could even scrape together this many crystals. No wonder Sun Wukong always called that bunch a countryside pantheon. Looking at it now, he really didn't wrong them. You have to know, this was still the leftover scrap after the Great War. If it were before the war, one could easily imagine how terrifying the stock would have been. He did some mental math. Now, one energy crystal could cut off about 5 origin gold patterns. Calculating this way, this pile of crystals could at least eliminate nearly 10,000 origin gold patterns. Luo Yu himself was startled by this number. If he really cut off that many gold patterns, could he jump directly from the peak of Mao class to Super Devil? He pondered for a while, but finally shook his head. Not very realistic. Previously, to rush to the Super Devil level, he had cut off nearly 100 origin gold patterns. Following this logic, the number of gold patterns needed to be cut off in the Super Devil level would definitely not stop at a few hundred. Luo Yu made a worst-case assumption, it would probably take thousands. The gap compared to the Mao class was completely on a 1,000-fold scale, even more terrifying than the 100-fold scale he had originally thought. According to this calculation, every minor rank required cutting off 1,000 gold patterns, and one major rank consisted of 16 minor ranks. The crystals in front of him were only enough for him to rush to the peak of the high stage of the Super Devil level. Forget it, thinking about this is useless. I'll go as far as I can, swallowing them all will naturally reveal the outcome. He couldn't be bothered to ponder these useless things anymore, casually grabbed an energy crystal, opened his mouth, and began to devour it. The massive energy frantically washed over his body, even his draconic physique could barely withstand it, and a layer of fine blood beads seeped out from the surface of his skin. This situation did not last long. Luo Yu stabilized that power and guided it all to surge into the dark space where the origin gold pattern was located. The energy transformed into a roaring flood dragon, fiercely cutting off 5 origin gold patterns, and was then completely exhausted. Luo Yu did not stop and continued to crazily swallow the energy crystals. After quite a while, he cut off 5 more origin gold patterns. Yet his cultivation level remained at the peak of Mao class, not moving a single bit. Exactly as Luo Yu had guessed. To break through from the peak of Mao class to the Super Devil level, the number of origin gold patterns that needed to be cut off was likely indeed in the thousands. He continued to devour. Another 5 origin gold patterns were cut off. 60 origin gold patterns were cut off. 80 origin gold patterns were cut off. 120 origin gold patterns were cut off. 260 origin gold patterns were cut off. 300 origin gold patterns were cut off. The origin gold patterns that Luo Yu had cumulatively cut off today had already reached 912. Just at this moment, he touched a certain critical point. Crack. A crisp yet muffled sound exploded from within his body. Immediately after, Luo Yu's aura, holy power, origin dragon soul, and bloodline power all began to skyrocket. They surged crazily at several times the speed. The draconic aura on his body was also transforming, becoming deep and heavy. That was the flavor only truly high-ranking dragons possessed. Luo Yu's current draconic bloodline had jumped directly from the original pure-blooded dragon species into the Dragon King level. In the living room on the first floor of the villa, Ophis was playing checkers with Kaneko. She looked up at Luo Yu's room and didn't pay it any more mind. The advancement of the draconic bloodline was not only sensed by Ophis, many dragons in the 3 realms also felt that oppressive sensation coming from the bloodline. A new true Dragon King had been born in the 3 realms. From now on, the 5 great Dragon Kings would become the 6 great Dragon Kings again. Dragon King represents the bloodline level, not a synonym for strength. For example, in the 3 realms, besides the evil dragon, there were originally only 6 Dragon Kings. But that doesn't mean other dragons are weak. Take Chi, the clan leader of the Holy Light Dragon in the Heavenly Realm. In terms of cultivation realm alone, he is completely not inferior to any dragon king. The bloodline of the Holy Light Dragon is, after all, still a pure-blooded dragon species, not the Dragon King level. When encountering a real Dragon King, the bloodline suppression alone is enough to suffer. In same-level combat, Dragon Kings are several times stronger than ordinary dragon species. Before, when Luo Yu obtained the Origin Dragon Soul, it only barely leveled the playing field in terms of class. Now it is different. In terms of bloodline, he is no longer inferior to any Dragon King. The seventh layer of the Heavenly Realm, Mirror Lake of Light, Central Island. What a perverted monster. Luo Yu's bloodline breaking through to Dragon King could not be hidden from Anqi. This clan leader of the Holy Light Dragon clearly felt waves of aura coming from the human world that made him instinctively bow his head. More importantly, he was too familiar with this aura, it was the Red Dragon Emperor. Over at the Dragon Graveyard, the entire mountain was shaking. Countless auras intertwined and rushed out, transforming into the figures they were when alive, all bowing and submitting in the direction of the human world. This was to congratulate the newly born Dragon King. Things like bloodline advancement were something Anqi dared not even imagine. He really didn't expect that the Red Dragon Emperor could forcibly raise the bloodline of a pure-blooded dragon to the Dragon King level. The Holy Light Dragon clan finally had their own Dragon King. With the Red Dragon Emperor here, I don't have to worry about the Holy Light Dragon bloodline being cut off. Anqi looked up, gazing in the direction of Michael's temple on the 8th layer. Peak of the early stage of Super Devil level. Mid stage of Super Devil level. Peak of the mid stage of Super Devil level. Inside the room, Luo Yu's aura was still crazily skyrocketing, surging upward bit by bit, as if there were no end at all. Fortunately, the arcane magic inscribed on the walls shielded all the aura. Otherwise, if this scene were known by other forces in the three realms, it would definitely stir up a heaven-shaking giant wave. Since ancient times, no one has ever been able to cross so many levels in a single day. What's even more terrifying is that Luo Yu is becoming stronger in every aspect. The cost is also very obvious. The pile of energy crystals that looked like a small mountain is being consumed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Half an hour later. Luo Yu exhaled a long breath of turbid air. The energy crystals in front of him had been sucked completely clean. He clenched his fists, feeling the terrifying power that had skyrocketed countless times within his body. It didn't reach the expected high stage of the Super Devil level, it only stopped at the peak of the mid stage of the Super Devil level. He frowned. Later, the consumption for each time I cut off an origin gold pattern increased. These crystals could only support me to this point. It is enough. Even without using the boosted gear in the Eternal Kingdom, just relying on his current self, holding his own against a limit-level super devil like Seraphal is absolutely no problem. Being able to take such a big step and challenge across levels, it all relies on the Dragon King bloodline. The biggest gain from this breakthrough was forcibly transforming his pure-blooded dragon species bloodline into a Dragon King bloodline. His physical strength and holy power have both undergone changes approaching a qualitative transformation. Speaking just of his physical body, it is more than 10 times stronger than a pure-blooded dragon of the same level. As for his holy power, that is even more exaggerated. Previously, after he swallowed the power left behind by that deity at the ancient battlefield in the underworld, he had already made a qualitative leap. Now that the Dragon King bloodline has transformed, it has increased by more than another fold. It is already infinitely close to the quality of the holy power used by that deity back then. Luo Yu has a premonition that when he raises his dragon species bloodline up one more notch, from Dragon King to Heavenly Dragon, he will definitely be able to go head-to-head with that deity's holy power. The only thing he feels regretful about is not awakening the dragon species origin ability. Every dragon has its own origin ability. Just like Dedrag's flames that burn everything, or Albion's virulent poison that reduces everything infinitely. This is the origin ability. Apophis's black water is also an origin ability. If he also had a dragon species origin ability, his strength could at least jump up another notch. However, Dedrag had told him that the later one's origin ability awakened, the more powerful it would be. Dedrag's flame, Albion's venom, and Apophis's black water all awakened when they were at the Super Devil King class, not when they reached the Super Devil level. If Luo Yu's origin ability could only awaken when he broke through to the Super Devil level, its power would certainly surpass theirs. But Luo Yu frowned and looked down at the boosted gear that had appeared on the back of his left hand. His own strength had indeed increased. However, after he developed the sacred Juggernaut drive, the amplification provided by this gauntlet had already hit the ceiling. Even if he unleashed the sacred Juggernaut drive now, it would only push his combat power to that previous Super Devil level. It wouldn't add even a fraction more. After all, the limit of the boosted gear was right there. Whether it was the Juggernaut drive or the sacred Juggernaut drive, they were just releasing Ddrake's power, which originally belonged to a Super Devil, more thoroughly. In the end, there was a limit. Luo Yu made a rough estimate in his mind. If he divided the strength of Super Devils into 3 tiers, then people like him and Valley, who relied on the boosted gear and the White Dragon Emperor's wings respectively to force themselves up to Super Devil combat power, could only be ranked at the very bottom of the first tier. With the Eternal Kingdom and the Stasis Field as his trump cards, he didn't fear fighting existences in the second Super Devil tier at all. The so-called second Super Devil tier referred to people like Sears X Lucifer, Hades, and the original Ddrake. Those in the top 10 worldwide were basically stuck at this level. Shiva was different, he was in the third Super Devil tier, leaving everyone else far behind. As his cultivation grew higher, the role of the boosted gear became less significant than it used to be. By the time he truly stepped into the Super Devil level, the amplification effect of this thing would likely drop to 0. By then, even if he wore it, it would at most be like wrapping an extra layer of hard shell, plus a few barely usable abilities. Luo Yu was a bit reluctant to just throw it away. After all, he had used it for so many years and was already used to it. The only path remaining was to continue stacking power onto the boosted gear. Just like when he had fused the essence of Dragon Eater Samael into the gauntlet, directly pushing an elite sacred gear to the level of a high-ranking sacred gear. Vritra, the Black Evil Dragon King. This name suddenly surfaced from the depths of his memory. Vritra was one of the 5 great dragon kings. His original dragon soul had been cut into 4 parts by a certain god and made into 4 dragon-type sacred gears: Black Dragon Pulse, Black Flame of the Evil Dragon, Pitch Black Territory, and Dragon Prison. Before he had obtained the essence of the primordial darkness dragon Apophis, what he had set his heart on was Vritra's dragon soul. Later, after he acquired Apophis's essence at the Mirror Lake in the Celestial Realm, he had completely put that matter aside. Now that he thought about it, the goal he had abandoned back then might still be useful to feed the boosted gear. Luo Yu rubbed his chin and recalled for a moment. If I remember correctly, the Black Dragon pulses with Sona's future servant, that kid named Saji Genshiro. The remaining Black Flame of the Evil Dragon, Pitch Black Territory, and Dragon Prison are all with the governor of Grigori, Azazel. The 3 items in Azazel's hands were easy to handle, just ask Valley to make a trip and ask for them. As for the Black Dragon Pulse on Sona's future servant, once that person entered Kuo Academy, he could just go and take it directly. The sky was gloomy, dark clouds hung low, and a light drizzle was falling. The rain grew heavier, and pedestrians on the street were all running. Some rushed home, others sought shelter under eaves. Not long after, the whole street was empty. Only the sound of raindrops hitting the ground, pitter-pattering, remained. There was only the sound of rain, the surroundings were deathly quiet. At this moment, a girl in a black dress stood in the rain, holding an oil paper umbrella, looking like someone who had stepped out of a painting. She held a bouquet of white chrysanthemums in her hand, waiting for someone. She looked up at the dark clouds in the sky from time to time, and the suffocating night surfaced in her mind. The sky that day had been just as heavy. It made one feel stifled. Sorry I'm late. A voice suddenly rang out beside her, pulling her back from those old memories. The girl turned her head and smiled. Ah, you. A young man stood in front of her, dressed in black just like her. However, he was not using an umbrella and was holding a bouquet of white carnations. Even stranger, the rainwater seemed to be deliberately avoiding him, curving away about a foot around him. It was as if there was an invisible barrier around him. As I thought, the carnations at Mom's grave before were all placed by you. Akino Himahima looked at the bouquet in Luo Yu's hand, and it immediately clicked in her mind. She walked to Luo Yu's side and handed him the oil paper umbrella in her hand. Then, she naturally linked her arm with his and leaned in. Let's go see Aunt Shuri. Luo Yu's voice was a bit heavy. The two of them walked together toward the mountain where the shrine was located. Today was the anniversary of Akino Himahima's mother's death. Shuri Himahima. On this day several years ago, Akino's mother had died at the hands of people from the Himahima clan in order to protect the two of them. That was also the most dangerous time Luo Yu had ever encountered in his life. If he told anyone now, no one would believe it. The Red Dragon Emperor, feared by the entire 3 realms, had its greatest trouble caused Not by some top-tier powerhouse like Shiva, nor by several pantheons surrounding and killing him. It was the few exorcists he encountered when he was a child. Those guys didn't even count as mid-level devils. But for the Luo Yu of that time, they were like insurmountable mountains. He watched helplessly as Aunt Shuri was killed. He had no way to stop it. If it weren't for Akino's father, Barakil, arriving at the end, he and Akino would have died there too. That day was too much of a blow to him. It was precisely because he was in so much pain that the sacred gear, the boosted gear, which had been sleeping in his body, finally awakened. It also broke through the magic that Akino had previously cast on him. The two of them didn't speak. Both were in a bad mood. They just walked slowly in the rain. It didn't take long to arrive. The shrine on the back mountain was reached. After Aunt Shuri passed away, it was Akino and him who personally buried her here. This place was the corner Aunt Shuri liked most when she was alive. The surroundings were planted with sunflowers, they were the ones she had planted with her own hands, and they were also her favorite flowers. Over the years, Luo Yu would come over to pull weeds every now and then, and Akino did the same. The two walked to the tombstone. Akino's expression changed instantly. A bouquet of white lilies was placed in front of the tombstone, looking like it had just been placed there not long ago, the petals were still fresh. Obviously, someone had already come to pay their respects before they arrived. Akino reached out to throw the bouquet away directly. Luo Yu stopped her. He shook his head. Aunt Shuri's death cannot be blamed on him. If Aunt were still here, she certainly wouldn't want to see you two, father and daughter, fighting like this. Besides the two of them, the only one who could come to place flowers in front of this tombstone was Akino's father, the Grigori Kadri, Barakil. Persuaded by Luo Yu, Akino finally did not throw away the lilies that the irresponsible man had placed in front of her mother's grave. She placed the white chrysanthemums in her hand in front of the tombstone, put her hands together, and silently prayed for her mother. Luo Yu also placed his bouquet of white carnations on it. He stared at the tombstone for a long while and said in his heart, Aunt Shuri, I have already dealt with the people who harmed your Himahima clan. I know that if you were still alive, you would definitely scold me. After all, you never wanted Akino and me to have blood on our hands. But rest assured, I understand your feelings for the Himahima clan, so I didn't wipe them out completely. I spared the lineage that opposed the Himahima clan's decision back then. And, he glanced at Akino, who was paying her respects. I will protect Akino well. No matter where it is in the three realms, I will not let her get hurt in the slightest. This was his promise to Akino Himahima, and also a promise to Aunt Shuri. A promise he would spend his whole life fulfilling. Half an hour passed. The rain in the sky grew heavier, lightning and thunder intertwined, and streaks of light tore the sky into light and dark halves. Judging by this situation, the rain wouldn't stop anytime soon. Mom, I'll come to see you again with you another day. Akino Himahima finished paying her respects and stood up from the ground. Let's go, you. She barely managed a small smile on her face, but the heavy sadness in her eyes could not be hidden at all. Akino, go wait for me outside for a moment. Luo Yu suddenly spoke up. Wait for you. Could it be, is he here too? Akino Himahima's expression changed on the spot, her eyes filled with resentment as she scanned the surroundings. Luo Yu nodded. Akino Himahima, go wait for me outside. Akino Himahima clenched her fists, her expression very complex. She hesitated for a short moment, but in the end, she nodded obediently and turned to walk outside. Once Akino Himahima's figure was completely swallowed by the heavy rain. Uncle Barakil, come out. As soon as the words fell, in front of Aunt Shuri's tombstone, a figure slowly appeared from the distorted space. Walking out from the distorted space was none other than the Grigori Kadri, the wielder of lightning power, Barakil. Barakil's face, which usually exuded dignity, carried a hint of desolation. He looked at his wife's tombstone, his eyes filled with sorrow and self-reproach. Long time no see, Uncle Barakil. Since that day, this is the first time we've met properly, right? That day, Luo Yu referred to was the night Akino's mother, Shuri, passed away. From then on, let alone Barakil, even Akino had cut off contact with him. Little Yu, you've grown up quite a bit. The tone of Barakil's voice was full of emotion. Who could have imagined that the little boy who used to love visiting the shrine, the little guy his wife particularly liked, Akino's only childhood playmate, had now become the world-renowned Red Dragon Emperor. One after another, powerful enemies that not even he, or the entire Grigori, dared to provoke easily had been taken down by him. Things are unpredictable, the changes are truly great. Uncle, don't you plan to see Akino? When Luo Yu first arrived here, he had already sensed Barakil hiding behind the space. It seemed he had been waiting here for a long time. Who was he waiting for? Needless to say, it was Akano Himehime. Perhaps all these years, every time Akano Himehime came to pay respects to her mother, Barakil would hide in the shadows and watch her silently. This was probably the only time in the year the father and daughter met, only Akano didn't know. Forget it. Barakil stared in the direction where Akano had just disappeared and sighed heavily. His tone was full of self-reproach. She probably still hates me, this irresponsible dad, even now. Luo Yu didn't say anything. Regarding the incident of Aunt Shuri's passing, all these years, both Barakil and Akano had been living in deep self-reproach. Barakil crouched down in front of the tombstone, his fingers gently stroking the cold surface of the stone. For so many years, he had been living in guilt. If he had arrived one step earlier back then, his wife wouldn't have died, and his daughter wouldn't have considered herself a jinx. Akano always felt that it was the filthy fallen one blood in her that had killed her mother. To break free from these shackles, she would rather have Rias Grimori reincarnate her as a devil. Shuri, our daughter has grown up. Barakil's voice was very soft, as if he were afraid of disturbing the person sleeping. She looks exactly like you now. That child, Luo Yu, has been protecting her in secret, so you can rest easy. He stood there for quite a while, telling his wife everything he had accumulated over the years, sentence by sentence. After he finished speaking, he turned around to look at Luo Yu. Luo Yu, you took down Hades, god of the underworld. The governor asked me to pass a message to you. Grigori owes you a favor. Luo Yu waved his hand. Azazel. He smiled. There is no need to mention favors. If it weren't for him and Michael holding back the Nordic side, Valley and I wouldn't have had the chance to ambush Hades. This account, in truth, could not be clearly settled. The underworld, Grigori, heaven, and the northern Mount Sumeru, none of the various factions wanted Hades to continue living. Azazel and Michael blocking the Nordic side, and Luo Yu and his group handling the direct strike, were all mutually beneficial matters. Strictly speaking, no one owed anyone anything. Barakil had long anticipated that Luo Yu would reply this way. The governor said that these two matters should be calculated separately and cannot be mixed together. Luo Yu remained silent for a moment. He suddenly realized that there was indeed something he needed Azazel's help with. Uncle Barakil, if the governor really wants to express something, have him come to Kuo town in person. Bring 3 sacred gears, the black flame of the evil dragon, the pitch black territory, and the dragon prison. In the 3 realms, the one who understands sacred gears the most thoroughly, aside from the gods who created them, is Azazel, who developed artificial sacred gears. With his help, the boosted gear could be strengthened another round. Black flame of the evil dragon, pitch black territory, dragon prison. Barakil repeated them. I have noted them down. The two chatted for a few more sentences. Luo Yu gave a greeting toward the gravestone, considering it a farewell to Aunt Shuri. Outside, Akano was still waiting for him. Barakil watched the direction in which Luo Yu left, his gaze somewhat complex. Luo Yu, Red Dragon Emperor. He muttered in a low voice, the corners of his mouth slowly curling into a smile. With you by Akano's side, I can finally be at ease. The rain was still falling. Luo Yu took one last look at his wife's gravestone. His black wings unfurled abruptly behind him, the 5 pairs of wings stirring up a gust of air, and he vanished directly into the torrential rain. Not long after leaving the mountain behind, he saw Akano Himehime holding that oil paper umbrella, standing quietly by the roadside waiting for him. Luo Yu walked over and took the umbrella from her hands. I'll see you back. Just as he turned to take a step, the corner of his clothes was pulled. What's wrong? I borrowed you from President Sona for the whole day, and that includes the night. Akano Himehime's tone was plain, yet there was a smile on her face. Luo Yu was stunned, immediately understanding the meaning behind her words. Akano, I. Before he could finish, Akano extended a finger to block his lips. President Sona took advantage of the situation and was the first, but I don't want to be the third wheel. Besides, didn't you promise in front of mom that you would be my child husband? She wore a mysterious smile, her words half truth and half joke. Child husband. Luo Yu felt a wave of helplessness upon hearing these 3 words. It was just a joke back then, who knew Akano Himehime would remember it until now. Akano Himehime didn't give him a chance to speak at all, dragging him directly into a love hotel. Judging by how familiar she was with the place, it was clear she had planned this long ago. With this setup, he was afraid he couldn't escape tonight. The sky was gloomy, and the room was filled with an ambiguous atmosphere, where tenderness and emotions were thoroughly blended together. The affair between Luo Yu and Akino Himehime naturally couldn't be hidden from the several women in the villa. These past few days, the looks Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka gave him were more resentful than the last. Sona was even keeping a cold face the whole time. Although she had anticipated this would happen when Akino Himehime asked to borrow him earlier, when it truly happened, she still felt a sense of emptiness in her heart, as if something that originally belonged to her had been carved away by someone else. Moreover, this situation of being divided by others would surely happen again in the future, and more than once. The more she thought about it, the more irritable she became. Sona hadn't slept well for several consecutive days. Senior Luo Yu, it seems someone is looking for you outside. The one speaking was Ruruko Nomura, wearing twin tails, small in stature, her cheeks slightly flushed, looking a bit shy. Luo Yu looked down at her. This girl was about the same age as Kaneko. After Sona advanced to her second year, she had recruited 3 more servants. The girl before him named Ruruko Nomura was one of them, and her rank was pawn. She was about the same age as Kaneko and had not yet officially enrolled in Kuo Academy. Of the remaining 2, one was named Momo Hanakai, whose rank was bishop, and the other was named Tsubasa Yura, whose rank was rook. This girl arrived quite quickly. Luo Yu expanded his perception and instantly recognized who had come. He smiled at Ruruko Nomura and said, "Thank you for your trouble, Ruruko." It's nothing. Ruruko Nomura muttered softly, swept a quick glance at Luo Yu, then turned and trotted away. Luo Yu couldn't help but rub his nose, smiling bitterly, "Am I that scary?" This new servant Sona had recruited was like a frightened little rabbit every time she saw him. Just making eye contact would make her run away in a panic. Azazel, you move quite quickly. Luo Yu walked to the first floor hall and saw a middle-aged man dressed casually sitting on the sofa, his back straight. This person was none other than the governor of Grigori, Azazel. He hadn't expected the other party to arrive so quickly. He had told Barakil about the matter, and only a few days had passed, which had to account for the time it took for Barakil to pass on the message, plus the time it took for Azazel to travel from the underworld to the human world. It looked like this guy had set off immediately upon receiving the news from Barakil. In the hall, Sona, Tsubaki Shinra, and Rei Kusaka were all there, and even the 3 newly recruited servants, including Momo Hanakai, were present. Sona was vigilantly staring at Azazel. After all, he was the leader of the fallen angels and an adversary to them, the devils. Kuroka didn't seem to be there, she was likely still sleeping soundly in her room. Serafal wasn't there either, she had rushed back to the underworld yesterday to handle official business. Hey, Red Dragon Emperor, you have too many monsters in your house. Azazel hurriedly stood up and leaned into Luo Yu's ear to mutter, his eyes glancing at Infinite Dragon God Ophis, who was playing checkers with Kaneko on the sofa. Good heavens. That was the Infinite Dragon God Ophis. And Fenrir, the man-eating wolf. Heaven knows how shocked he was when he walked in just now. He almost lost face in front of a bunch of juniors. What he couldn't figure out most was how the Infinite Dragon God Ophis could appear here. Didn't Valley tell you? Luo Yu was a bit puzzled. That brat hasn't shown his face for several months. Who knows if he went off into seclusion somewhere after personally taking down Rizvam Levon Lucifer and resolving his inner conflict. Azazel spread his hands, looking helpless. Although he was Valley's foster father, the number of times that brat had listened to him from childhood to adulthood could be counted on one hand. Disappearing without a trace like he did now had long become a common occurrence. I want to take away 3 things: the black flame of the evil dragon, the pitch black territory, and the dragon prison. You should have them in your possession. Azazel narrowed his eyes. I don't know where you heard the news, but the black flame of the evil dragon and the pitch black territory are indeed in my hands. He reached out and pulled 2 sacred gears wrapped in black aura directly from his robes. But the dragon prison is not with me. Luo Yu's brow tightened. Not with you. Could it be that Grigori hadn't collected that item yet? I also just got my hands on the black flame of the evil dragon and the pitch black territory. Forget it, 2 will do, we'll deal with the rest later. Luo Yu waved his hand, looking indifferent. Azazel, do me a favor. You want to fuse these 2 sacred gears into the boosted gear to raise its rank to high tier. You see things quite clearly. Luo Yu was not at all surprised that this old guy could see through his intentions. After all, he had made it quite obvious. Of course. Azazel proudly lifted his chin. Whether it's Valley or you, your future achievements will certainly not stop at the Devil King level. Once you break through to the Super Devil level, the boost provided by the sacred gear will be limited. Strengthening the sacred gear is a matter of time, unless you plan to discard it. Halfway through his sentence, Azazel suddenly froze. He suddenly realized that the Red Dragon Emperor before him had actually broken through the Devil King level and reached the Super Devil level, and not just barely crossing the threshold, but standing firmly at the peak of the mid-stage of the Super Devil level. How long had it been? A year ago, when this fool ambushed that old bag of bones Hades, he had clearly just broken through to the Devil King level not long before. How could he improve so quickly? It was completely unreasonable. Azazel's heart was churning, too shocked to speak. A word of advice. Luo Yu raised his hand, and the boosted gear appeared on his palm. The boosted gear has long since upgraded from an elite sacred gear to a high-tier sacred gear. This time, I asked you to come not just to simply strengthen the gauntlet. Azazel's pupils constricted. He stared at the armor before him, which had changed drastically. Indeed, it was no longer its original appearance. This aura, this halo, it had clearly reached the same level as the true Longinus and the Dimension Lost. The boosted gear on Luo Yu's left hand looked completely different from before. Azazel stared at it for a long time, always feeling that there was a familiar aura on it. It was Samael. That guy's stench. Last time, when you severed the dragon-kind shackles. Luo Yu didn't hide anything and said directly, the hilt of the first holy sword, combined with Samael, was what pushed the boosted gear to the high tier. Azazel clicked his tongue. I almost forgot, you still have the blood of a fallen one flowing in you. Sona looked at the gauntlet, her gaze falling on those black and gold patterns. Those patterns were identical to the contract chains on her and her sister. She breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. Fortunately, her sister had returned to the underworld today. If she were to see this scene, especially hearing that Luo Yu still wanted to strengthen the gauntlet, she would definitely explode again. And it would cause a bunch of trouble again. As for whether strengthening it would make the contract stronger, Sona was not worried. She had already said it before. The contract had already been stretched to its limit and could not be added to further. Because this time it was strengthening, not mutation. Even if there were any changes, at most, the backlash when violating the contract would become heavier. There would be no difference from now. Azazel was silent for a while. Red Dragon Emperor. He looked at Luo Yu's left hand. You want to advance the gauntlet to a king-class Longinus. King-class Longinus. This was the first time Luo Yu had heard of this. However, he really wanted to further upgrade the boosted gear. Since there was a tier above, upper tier, he would aim for that direction. Anything above an upper tier sacred gear is called king class. Azazel nodded. When the god of the Bible created sacred gears back then, he divided them into 3 tiers, elite, upper tier, and king class. The true Longinus was an attempt at the king class. It wasn't completely successful, even if it releases its balance breaker, at best it only reaches Hades level. It can only be considered a semi-king class. If it were a complete king class Longinus, the power it erupts with could touch Shiva's tier. A 3rd tier super devil. Luo Yu said. That's pretty much what it means. Azazel replied. Luo Yu's face darkened. Relying solely on these 2 artifacts, it is impossible for the boosted gear to break through to that level. Azazel frowned, his tone filled with helplessness. Moreover, the core is still with Didrag. He continued. When Didrag was alive, he was a 2nd tier super devil. Now, with only a remnant dragon soul left, it's already not easy for him to unleash the power of a 1st tier super devil. To push him to a 3rd tier super devil, honestly, it's impossible. Luo Yu was silent. What Azazel said was indeed a dead end. He had thought too simply before, believing that as long as he found artifacts with the same attributes and fused them into the boosted gear, it would naturally rise to the level of a king-class Longinus. But he had forgotten about the core, Didrag. Previously, fusing the hilt of the first holy sword only improved the connectivity between the boosted gear and the whole. Later, fusing with Samael did indeed strengthen the boosted gear in all aspects, but looking at it now, it seemed more like helping Didrag recover some of his original power, and that recovery was quite limited. Just then, Didrag suddenly spoke. Little fallen angel, if I give up everything and completely fuse my remnant dragon soul into the boosted gear, can it be reforged into a king-class Longinus? Luo Yu and Azazel were both stunned. Didrag, you don't have to. Luo Yu was anxious to say something, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by Didrag. Partner, let me give you one last push before you truly reach the top. Didrag's voice carried an unquestionable determination. Luo Yu opened his mouth, but eventually swallowed his words. He had originally thought that once his own strength reached the super devil level, he might be able to release D-Drake from the cage that was the boosted gear. But now, he let out a long sigh. Azazel was silent, staring fixedly at the boosted gear on Luo Yu's arm. He never dreamed that D-Drake, once a heavenly dragon, would do this much for a host. Giving up his remnant soul to completely fuse into the boosted gear meant completely abandoning the possibility of resurrection. It wasn't like now, existing as a sealed soul inside an artifact, but truly becoming one with the artifact. If the artifact shattered, he would also completely disappear. D-Drake, I can only say, I will give it my all. Azazel didn't dare to give a definitive answer. Even the God of the Bible couldn't create a king-class Longinus, so he could only take this opportunity to try his best. Thinking of this, he actually felt a bit excited. This kind of opportunity to reforge a sacred gear wasn't something anyone could encounter. Perhaps he could use this opportunity to see through more secrets of the artifacts. Red Dragon Emperor, to reforge the boosted gear, you need to go to the underworld. Luo Yu knew clearly that wanting to reforge and upgrade the boosted gear on his arm, relying solely on the conditions of the human world was not enough. The materials and environment were not up to standard. To let this artifact break through to the level of a king-class Longinus, what was needed was not just the black flame of the evil dragon and the pitch-black territory before his eyes, that was far from enough. He didn't waste any more time. He greeted Sona, casually said he would be back soon, and then followed Azazel. The two set off from Kuo town and headed straight to the hell located deep within the underworld. It was filled with a pungent smell of sulfur everywhere. Volcano after volcano stood before their eyes, some restless, erupting from time to time. There was a large tear in the sky, from which a waterfall of light elements poured down, turbid and foul-smelling, glowing with filthy light. The waterfall flowed into the gaps between the volcanoes, accumulating into small puddles. The gray volcanic smoke overhead covered the sky in a deathly stillness, and groups of fallen angels patrolled back and forth in the sky. This place was the hell that the fallen angels had carved out in the underworld. Luo Yu scanned the area, feeling quite unimpressed. It couldn't compare to the heaven. Even any random place in the underworld was much better than this. In the distance, there were some shadows of cities, but they looked shabby, not even as good as the territories under the pure-blooded devils. No wonder those fallen angels always loved to sneak into churches in the human world. Azazel spread his 6 pairs of black wings and hovered beside Luo Yu. He saw the disdain on Luo Yu's face and smiled bitterly as he spoke. When I brought my brothers down from heaven, it took a lot of effort to create this hell. Given our abilities, it wasn't easy to carve out a place like this. Speaking of this, one couldn't underestimate those cadres who fell with Azazel. They were at most only at the Mao class, or slightly stronger than a devil king. If he really let Luo Yu go all out to recarve a territory like hell, he himself would feel it would be difficult to start. Azazel, as the host, led Luo Yu to a particularly tall and magnificent volcano. The fallen angels patrolling nearby all bowed respectfully as soon as they saw him, then consciously stepped aside. This is my sacred gear research lab. Azazel pointed to the volcano in front of him, his tone filled with pride. Luo Yu shook his head. Using a volcano as a research lab, Azazel, you really know how to make trouble. Azazel smiled. Don't be impatient, you'll see in a moment. Azazel formed a few hand seals, and the seal on the volcano immediately opened automatically, and a portal appeared in front of the two. Red Dragon Emperor, please. Azazel took the lead and made a gesture of invitation to Luo Yu. Luo Yu stepped into the interior of the volcano and found that it was a whole new world inside, finally understanding why Azazel had said that. This place was completely another world, with ground and sky. Inside this volcano, arcane magic or similar means must have been used to expand the space infinitely. When he was at the villa before, Luo Yu had also slightly expanded his room. But he hadn't made it as outrageous as Azazel, directly expanding it into a small realm. Are these, all sacred gears? The first things that came into his view were neither high mountains nor white clouds, but giant red crystal pillars rising from the ground. These red crystal pillars required 5 or 6 people to open their arms to embrace them. What caught Luo Yu's attention most was that various strange-looking sacred gears were sealed within the crystal pillars, and not a single pillar was empty. There might not be thousands of crystal pillars in this place, but there were definitely hundreds. And none of them were low-level goods that could only beat mortals and couldn't deal with gods or demons, they were all sacred gears with super devil power. How many sacred gears did that god create? What surprised Luo Yu was not that Grigori had collected so many sacred gears, but the creativity of that god. He secretly pondered that if that god hadn't created so many sacred gears back then, and hadn't exhausted so much power and effort, perhaps after sealing Beast Emperor 666, he wouldn't have been so easily ambushed by Shiva and the others, and eventually fallen. Except for him, I'm afraid no one knows the number. He himself couldn't remember clearly. Azazel led Luo Yu to the center of the crystal pillars and stopped. This is my research platform. The center was a very large open space, where countless magic circles could be seen carved on the ground, in the sky, and all around. A small portion of the magic circles, Luo Yu could tell what they were used for, but more of the magic circles, and those large magic circles combined together, were not something he could understand at a glance. Red Dragon Emperor, please separate the boosted gear from your body first and make it ownerless. Only in this way can it be completely reforged from within. Don't worry, there are shielding arrays here, and the power of the heaven system cannot affect this place. Luo Yu nodded, without much nonsense, and directly detached the boosted gear from his left hand. For a moment, he felt a bit unaccustomed to it. After all, this boosted gear had been with him for nearly 10 years, just like his own hand, and he had long been used to its existence. Azazel just extended his finger and tapped lightly. The boosted gear floated in the very center of the plaza. Immediately after, the magic circles on the ground glowed with a faint light. Under the shroud of this light, the boosted gear began to expand violently, and its form also underwent drastic changes. Not long after, roar roar roar, a dazzling red light exploded. The boosted gear directly transformed into a giant beast with a size of hundreds of jong, and its appearance was exactly one of the two great heavenly dragons that traversed the three realms, the Red Dragon Emperor, Didrag. Azazel explained, this is just using the power of the formations here to temporarily simulate Didrag's appearance when he was alive. Luo Yu asked, what do I need to do? In terms of artifact research, Azazel was a true expert. This reforging was also led by him. I need your blood. Azazel's tone was serious. A large amount of ordinary blood, and even essence blood must be taken out. I want to integrate your blood into the boosted gear little by little, letting it start from zero and gradually match your power. Only in this way can the newborn boosted gear achieve the highest compatibility with you. It will become a sacred gear born only for you. Roar roar roar. Begin, little fallen angel. Didrag roared continuously, seemingly enjoying this rare moment of liberation. However, it also didn't forget the purpose of coming to the underworld this time. Activate. Azazel immediately activated all the magic circles on the plaza. Colorful energy turned into ribbons, wrapping around Didrag's huge body, wrapping it into a giant cocoon of light, as if it had returned to the time of its birth. Red Dragon Emperor. Luo Yu immediately understood Azazel's meaning. He directly transformed into a holy light dragon hundreds of jong long, his size completely not losing to Didrag. This dragon circled in the sky, its scales as white as a work of art, spliced together without any gaps. Its body was slender and graceful, no longer as bloated as before. 6 white dragon horns grew on the dragon's head, woven into a crown. A brilliant and vast divine power erupted suddenly. This momentum swept in all directions. Now, rather than calling it a holy light dragon, it would be more appropriate to call it the Holy Light Dragon King. The mere size of his form was several times larger than when he had unleashed the sacred juggernaut drive before, and it was far larger than Anchi, the patriarch of the Holy Light Dragon clan. In the three realms, aside from the infinite dragon god Ophis and the Great Red, Luo Yu's form could definitely be called the largest. Even those evil dragons were far inferior to him. Dragon King. Seeing the true form Luo Yu revealed, Azazel felt a shock in his heart, his face full of disbelief. Luo Yu tore off his scales one by one, slicing a wound deep to the bone on his chest. Blood the size of fists hammered downwards, making the ground thud with impact. In no time, the plaza was soaked through with blood. The blood gathered into a small lake centered around the giant cocoon Didrag had transformed into, and the thick scent of blood assaulted the nose. Because of the excessive blood loss, the scales on Luo Yu's body visibly dimmed in color. But it wasn't over yet. He opened his massive maw and spat out a drop of essence blood. That drop of blood was as large as a basketball, emitting energy fluctuations that would make anyone tremble in fear, and it fell directly onto Didrag's cocoon. As soon as the essence blood left his body, Luo Yu's aura immediately weakened by a few notches. Just then, bang! A crystal pillar exploded. The dragon-type sacred gear sealed inside was shattered directly under Azazel's control, turning into a beam of light that drilled into Didrag's cocoon. Judging by how skilled Azazel was at dismantling sacred gear, he must have done this often. Once this sacred gear entered, the surface of the cocoon began to ripple slightly. Azazel's eyes lit up. This was a good sign. The information fed back by the array showed that the sacred gear had perfectly fused with the boosted gear. Furthermore, Didrag was actively splitting off his source dragon soul, merging it bit by bit into the gauntlet, which provided a buffer for the subsequent fusion of other dragon-type sacred gear. Following that, bang, 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 crystal pillars exploded one after another. The dragon-type sacred gear sealed within were all dismantled by Azazel and fused in one by one. The ripples on the surface of the cocoon became increasingly intense. Luo Yu's blood was also mixed in, he could clearly feel the boosted gear undergoing changes. The sacred gear brewing inside the giant cocoon was indeed growing stronger step by step. Time passed bit by bit. Azazel smashed all of the hundreds of dragon-type sacred gear in the crystal pillars and stuffed them inside, even sacrificing top-tier items like the black flame of the evil dragon and the pitch-black territory. The consumption was terrifying. Yet, the item still hadn't successfully advanced. Azazel gritted his teeth. Bang, 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 crystal pillars exploded one after another, and the dragon-type sacred gear inside were all fused into the boosted gear. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and pick more items with dragon attributes, gambling that nothing would go wrong. Another 30 pieces of sacred gear were forcibly dismantled and fused in. It pained Azazel's heart to watch. If he couldn't push the gauntlet to the level of a king-class Longinus in one go this time, his savings of several thousand years would have been for nothing. Suddenly, the aura on the surface of the giant cocoon surged violently, with absolutely no warning. The sacred gear are conflicting. Azazel's face turned black. The conflict among the dragon-type sacred gear fused in earlier hadn't been obvious, and with Didrag splitting his source dragon soul little by little to fuse along with the artifacts, the buffering had been stable enough. But now that Didrag's dragon soul had been completely fused, there was no buffer, and with artifacts of conflicting attributes mixed together, Azazel felt his scalp tingle. At this moment, Luo Yu moved. She forcibly endured the excruciating pain of her soul being torn, directly ripping off a third of her source dragon soul and tossing it into the giant cocoon. Luo Yu's massive body swayed, and her aura grew even weaker. With the suppression from Luo Yu's source dragon soul, the conflict between those sacred gear and the boosted gear slowly calmed down. Hiss, this woman really knows how to go hard on herself, she rips her dragon soul just like that. Azazel gasped. They endured for another 10 plus minutes. Luo Yu could clearly feel that the boosted gear had been strengthened to its limit, and it was just one breath away from advancing to a king-class Longinus. The boosted gear inside the giant cocoon had been touching the peak of high-ranking sacred gear since last month, just one step away from rushing into the king class. But this step was stuck. It seemed like something crucial was missing, causing this artifact to be fundamentally flawed. Luo Yu gritted his teeth and forcibly stuffed another 50-plus sacred gear inside, putting in almost everything that could be used. The remaining ones were scrap that conflicted with the boosted gear's attributes and couldn't be fused at all. He also cut off another quarter of his source dragon soul, forcefully suppressing the conflict of that pile of artifacts. Now, both Azazel and Luo Yu were at their limits, neither could hold on for much longer. A thought suddenly exploded in Azazel's mind. The sacred gear created by the God of the Bible are all managed by the heaven system. But I want to detach the boosted gear from the system now. He suddenly understood. The things he had been ignoring all this time came flooding back. Once that God died, the heaven system collapsed, and various sacred gear started having problems, with complications popping up one after another. To put it simply, the heaven system was not just a control system as he had previously thought. There must be deeper secrets involved, perhaps even a part of the core of the sacred gear. It was just that he couldn't see through the God's intentions for the time being. But now was not the time to ponder this. The boosted gear was stuck at the most critical hurdle, and he had to find something to fill in, to complete that part of the heaven system's functionality. This would allow it to advance smoothly and also cut it clean from the system. What can replace the heaven system? Azazel searched through hundreds of years of memories in his mind, his peripheral vision catching sight of Luo Yu, who was trying desperately to recover nearby. A flash of inspiration struck his mind. 4 words popped out: Eternal Kingdom. That's right, whether it's the heaven system or heaven itself, they were all created by that God using the eternal kingdom. If I embed an eternal kingdom into the boosted gear, could it completely fill that vacancy? The thoughts in Azazel's mind were like an exploding pot, popping out one by one, and he began to mutter to himself. Luo Yu, can you still manifest an eternal kingdom right now? It doesn't need to be too big, just complete. He shouted loudly at Luo Yu. Luo Yu couldn't be sure what Azazel was planning. His current state was very poor, he had lost too much blood and essence blood, and his source dragon soul had been torn apart. If he really had to fight, he couldn't even bring out 30% of his strength. Fortunately, he still had quite a bit of sacred power left in his body. If he pushed himself, forcibly releasing an eternal kingdom wasn't impossible. Looking at Azazel's frantic appearance, Luo Yu knew clearly that it must be related to that final step for the boosted gear. He didn't intend to hesitate any longer. Taking a deep breath, Luo Yu drew out almost all the sacred power within his body and directly released the eternal kingdom. The solemn and holy nine-layered heaven appeared in the sky, covering everything. The sacred aura surged towards the surroundings like a tide, light showered down, and melodic hymns echoed in his ears. This nine-layered heaven was much smaller in scale than the one deployed when annihilating the god of the underworld Hades. But its degree of materialization was much stronger than before, it was no longer a phantom and had a bit more of a tangible texture. Of course, it was still a long, long way from true physical manifestation. Good. Seeing that Luo Yu could still manifest the eternal kingdom completely, Azazel was overjoyed. Luo Yu did not continue to control it, handing the control directly over to Azazel. Azazel took it, feeling the profound mystery within, as if he were truly holding an entire heaven in the palm of his hand. He dared not waste time, immediately taking action, continuously shrinking the eternal kingdom that covered the sky, and finally gripping it firmly in his palm. After all, the eternal kingdom itself was not an offensive type of divine art. After Luo Yu relinquished control, it was nothing to be surprised about that Azazel could directly grasp it. Go. Once the eternal kingdom shrank to only the size of a palm, exquisite like a small model, Azazel slapped it into that giant cocoon. The next moment, the giant cocoon suddenly erupted with blinding light. That boosted gear inside, which had originally been stuck at a bottleneck it couldn't break through, shattered immediately after merging with the eternal kingdom, as if a chemical reaction had occurred. Luo Yu could clearly feel that the aura of the boosted gear inside the giant cocoon was climbing upwards bit by bit. At the same time, the interior of the gauntlet was undergoing some kind of profound transformation and evolution. Half an hour later, the aura emitted by the boosted gear was dozens of times stronger than before. It's done. The stone in Azazel's heart finally landed. At this step, he finally dared to be certain that the boosted gear had truly advanced into a king-class Longinus. This was something that even that god had not been able to create. Although he had picked up a ready-made advantage based on the sacred gear left behind by that god, which was a bit like plagiarizing others' ideas, regardless, today's achievement was enough for him to be proud of for a lifetime. The giant cocoon had completely solidified, wrapped in a hard shell. The moment the boosted gear successfully evolved into a king-class Longinus, that hard shell began to crack from the middle, and the cracks spread rapidly across the entire surface like a spiderweb. Bang! With a crisp sound, it was as if a shockwave exploded from within, and the entire giant cocoon shattered into fragments. In its place appeared a white dragon claw, crystalline and transparent throughout, glowing with a holy luster. Compared to the original boosted gear, it was worlds apart, everything from the color to the design had changed. The dragon claw became more slender and no longer had that clumsy feeling from before. The position where the emerald green gem was originally embedded was replaced by a golden eye, carrying a faint sense of majesty. If one were to look closely, they would find that the eye was exactly the same as Luo Yu's own golden eyes. A white aurora streaked across the sky. Before Luo Yu could move, that drastically changed gauntlet, as if it had smelled its master's scent, flew over directly and firmly latched onto his left hand. This is the boosted gear that has advanced to the king class. Luo Yu looked down at the new gauntlet on his left hand. His first feeling was that this thing seemed to have grown completely together with his arm, unlike before where he could still feel a sense of separation from the weapon. However, Luo Yu was not in a hurry to study this boosted gear that had transformed into a king-class Longinus, nor did he check how much its abilities had increased or whether it had met his expectations. Didrag, are you okay? From the moment Azazel started the forging, Luo Yu had been worried about Didrag's state. After all, he had completely merged into the gauntlet. Don't worry, partner, I'm fine. On the contrary, I feel especially comfortable, as if I've shed the shackles from my body, and I feel light all over. Didrag's voice echoed in Luo Yu's ears. Hearing this, the stone in Luo Yu's heart finally fell to the ground. As long as Didrag was fine, it was all that mattered. After confirming that Didrag was truly alright, Luo Yu turned his gaze back to the drastically changed boosted gear on his left hand. He could clearly feel that Didrag's aura had completely merged with the gauntlet, as if he had become the spirit within the gauntlet, no longer just a soul trapped inside as before. Moreover, this gauntlet had completely broken free from the control of the heaven system, becoming a true sacred gear that belonged solely to Luo Yu. Luo Yu stared at the brand new gauntlet, examining it carefully for a long while. Given its current form and color, calling it boosted gear did feel a bit strange. However, he had no intention of changing its name. Let it be a memento. Without this gauntlet, there would be no him today. It was this item that had brought him up from his weakest point. Without it, he wouldn't have made it this far. So strong. His heart skipped a beat. He actually had a premonition, but when he truly saw the gauntlet that had ascended to a king-class Longinus with his own eyes, he was still shocked. The types of abilities hadn't changed. But the power wasn't simply doubled or tripled, it was completely on another level. Boost and transfer were now completely bound together, the cooldown was gone, and most absurdly, the upper limit was at least 10 times higher than before. Crimson Emperor Flame, Penetrate, and Decay Curse had all surged in power. Especially Decay Curse. It could now directly turn into a seed that masked perception, silently injecting itself into the enemy's body when they weren't even aware of it. When to detonate it was entirely up to his mood. Not only was the power greater, but the stealth was also countless times stronger. He could also feel that, in addition to the original Juggernaut Drive and Sacred Juggernaut Drive, there was a brand new form. Ultimate Dragonification. This was an ability derived from the new gauntlet itself. Once activated, his power could instantly soar to the level of the third sequence of a super devil, putting him on par with the god of destruction, Shiva. Coupled with the gauntlet's monstrous abilities, if he were to fight Shiva again now, he wouldn't need any tricks, he might not even lose in a direct confrontation. He also discovered a small space inside the gauntlet. It was the eternal kingdom that Azazel had infused into it. He originally thought it was just a normal storage space, but upon sensing it carefully, he was stunned. This place seemed capable of holding living things. It didn't seem very useful right now, at most a special warehouse, but he knew in his heart that this thing could definitely save his life in a critical moment. Thanks, Azazel. He looked at Azazel, who was slumped to the side, exhausted to the limit, and sincerely thanked him. This thanks, he owed. If Azazel hadn't gone all out to help him and poured so many sacred gears into it, relying solely on his own immature idea, it would have been impossible to upgrade the gauntlet to this point. No need for thanks, I promised you anyway. Azazel waved his hand, too lazy to say much more. Azazel turned his head to look at the crystal pillar beside him that was shattered to just its base. It had originally held nearly 200 sacred gears, but now they were all scrapped. His heart ached. According to his original estimate, consuming about 100 sacred gears would have been enough for the boosted gear to complete its advancement. And yet, it was not like that at all. Sigh. Azazel let out a long sigh in his heart, then thought, at least this time it wasn't completely in vain. At the very least, he had figured out one thing. The role of the heaven system regarding sacred gears was far from as simple as he had previously thought. His research direction needed to change, he needed to pay more attention to the connection between the heaven system and the god realm. Perhaps this way, the artificial sacred gears he tinkered with could be made exactly the same as real ones. Red Dragon Emperor, the decay curse isn't fully finished yet. I suggest you integrate those two, the Black Dragon Pulse and the Dragon Prison, as well as soon as possible. Luo Yu was not surprised that Azazel knew every function of the boosted gear. This gauntlet was originally rebuilt by Azazel, so it would be strange if he didn't know. Luo Yu nodded, taking these words to heart. He still had no clue where the Dragon Prison was, but as for the Black Dragon Pulse, as long as he waited for a while, someone would naturally deliver it to his doorstep. Time flowed away like water. Spring passed, summer ended, autumn came again, and in the blink of an eye, a year had gone by. At the entrance of Kuo Academy, new students and upperclassmen crowded together, chatting and laughing as they walked into the campus. Today was the first day of school, and also the day for freshman registration. Unlike previous years, there were significantly more boys at the school gate this year. At this moment, a tall, handsome youth appeared in the crowd's line of sight. His white hair was elegant, and a pair of golden eyes exuded the noble temperament that only aristocrats possessed. His whole being radiated a gentle and clean aura, making people unable to help but look a few more times. As his back slowly disappeared into the depths of the campus, many newly enrolled young girls immediately pulled the upperclassmen beside them to ask, Who is that person? What grade is the upperclassman in? What does he like? The boys nearby were all full of sourness, grumbling unconvincedly. Isn't it just having a handsome face? What's so great about that? He is the vice president of the student council, senior Luo Yu, a third-year student this year. The student council office was incredibly busy. On the first day of school, everyone was spinning like tops. Raya Kusaka placed a stack of freshman documents on the president's desk and said, "President, the enrollment files for the freshmen have all been organized, they are all here." Sona didn't even raise her head, her pen never stopping in her hand. She had been the student council president for over 2 years, and she had long since practiced her speed in approving these documents. After a while, Sona finished processing the documents at hand. She looked up and scanned the office, always feeling that a familiar figure was missing. "Raya, where is Luo Yu?" Tsubaki Shinra immediately cut in. "Master must have run off somewhere to slack off again." She said this through gritted teeth. These past few days had been so busy that everyone was falling apart, and thinking about her master being idle all day made her feel incredibly sour. "Tsubaki, if you badmouth me behind my back again, I'll dump all my work onto you." Luo Yu didn't know when he had stood behind Tsubaki Shinra, and he raised his hand to tap her on the forehead. This little girl, always badmouthing him every other day, did she really think he couldn't handle her? "Ouch. Master, can you stop being so ghostly? You'll scare people to death." Tsubaki Shinra covered her head and complained. Luo Yu ignored her, walked over to Sona, and reached out to pull the curtain open a crack. He looked down at the freshman coming and going downstairs and shook his head. "I really didn't expect that the dragon prison would fall on him." Sona's hand holding the pen stopped. Of course, she knew what Luo Yu had been looking for during this time, the Black Dragon Pulse and the Dragon Prison. A while ago, he had already obtained the Black Dragon Pulse from a second-year student and subsequently integrated it into the boosted gear. Now, only the Dragon Prison remained as the final puzzle piece. Sona looked over in the direction of Luo Yu's gaze. Downstairs stood a brown-haired youth, whose eyes were darting around lecherously, which made her feel disgusted just looking at him. "Isn't that Hyodo Issei, one of the famous perverted trio in the academy?" Sona frowned. "I didn't expect such a person to be worthy of being chosen by a sacred gear." The evening afterglow sprinkled over Kuo town, by the park pond. Hyodo Issei stood frozen in place, staring at the girlfriend he had only been dating for a day. "Yuma, what did you just say?" He thought he had misheard. Those eyes, which should have been gentle, were now as cold as ice. "Issei, just die. If you want to blame someone, blame the god who stuffed that sacred gear into your body." Her tone was devoid of any temperature. Hyodo Issei's pupils constricted violently. Tsubaki Shinra, Momo Hanakai, and the others stood at the second-floor window, looking down at the boy below with disgust. In Kuo Academy, the reputation of the trio was very rotten. Luo Yu leaned against the window and spoke slowly. "Sacred gears, this thing, hosting depends entirely on luck. As long as human blood flows in the body, even half-breeds can be chosen." He didn't expect that Hyodo Issei, this protagonist, would have such a deep connection with dragon species. Without the boosted gear, another dragon prison came along. If it weren't for a whim today to help Sona handle the student council documents and coincidentally bumping into this kid, he really wouldn't have known that the dragon prison was hidden in this guy. Sona hesitated for a moment. "I remember Rias Grimori seems to want to recruit him as a servant, and he is still in the observation period." "Rias Grimori? Huh. Not surprising." Luo Yu's tone was indifferent. Even without the boosted gear, the dragon prison was good enough. Being targeted by Rias Grimori was normal. "Sona, help me pass on a message. The observation period, I'll save her from it." Sona shook her head with a bitter smile. Now Rias Grimori is probably going to explode. The relationship between these two people not only hadn't eased with time, but had instead become increasingly stiff. Luo Yu's gaze suddenly shifted. A woman with long black hair appeared at the school gate, exuding a filthy aura all over her body. She grabbed Hyodo Issei. Then that kid's face was filled with excitement. Luo Yu's lips curled up. Isn't this the scene where the plot begins? He had caused such a big commotion in Kuo town that the Three Realms knew the Red Dragon Emperor was here. Yet there were still fallen angels who dared to come and seek death. Hyodo Issei hadn't even had time to ask his girlfriend what exactly was going on when a violent pain exploded. The pain came from his abdomen. It was as if something had pierced through his entire body. He looked down in disbelief and saw a spear emitting white light piercing into his stomach. His clean clothes were instantly soaked with pungent blood. It was the girlfriend he had just started dating a day ago who had done it. Hyodo Issei opened his mouth, wanting to ask something. But what he saw was Rainer, who had already transformed into her fallen angel form. The pair of pitch black wings behind her fiercely impacted his perception. Issei, playing house like this with you was quite interesting, but the sacred gear inside you makes us feel threatened, so, please die quietly here. Rainer's voice was as cold as ice. She pulled out that light spear. Fresh blood sprayed out violently, splattering all over the ground. How could it be like this? Hyodo Issei fell to the ground, having lost too much blood, his eyelids becoming heavier and heavier, and his consciousness beginning to blur. What sacred gear, what god, he didn't understand any of it. The only thing he knew was, his life was ebbing away bit by bit. Was he just killed like this by his girlfriend of one day? Or rather, killed by a fallen angel? Just rot slowly here, you lowly bug. Rainer looked down condescendingly at Hyodo Issei, who was gradually losing his life on the ground. Just as she was about to turn and leave, a voice suddenly sounded in her ear. Azazel's order was only for you to monitor him, not to kill him. Rainer was startled and shouted sternly, "Who is it? Come out." Luo Yu walked out slowly from the shadows and glanced at the unconscious Hyodo Issei. With a wave of his hand, he cast a healing spell. Emerald light flickered, and the wound pierced by the light spear healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. If not for the hole in his clothes and the large patches of blood, one wouldn't even be able to tell he had just suffered such a severe injury. With another casual grab, he easily extracted the sacred gear, Dragon Prison, residing within Hyodo Issei's body and held it in his palm. Now the decay curse can be completely perfected. Let me see what's special about this thing. Luo Yu stared at the Dragon Prison in his hand, a smile on his face. A mage. Rainer's expression changed. She mistook the arcane magic Luo Yu had used for mere magic. Immediately after, her face darkened. A lowly human dares to toy with a great fallen angel. Put the sacred gear down. Rainer took Luo Yu for a passing rogue mage. The kind of low-life scum who specializes in digging sacred gears out of human bodies. She had seen many of these types, they were all greedy for sacred gears and would even kill their own kind. With a casual grip, light elements condensed into a long spear, which she hurled fiercely at Luo Yu, intending to kill him outright. Are you fallen angel's eyes just for show? Can't you even tell the strength of your opponent? Luo Yu frowned. Since she was Azazel's subordinate, he originally didn't want to make a big deal out of this. But since the other party attacked first, she couldn't blame him. Crack! The light spear flew to within a yard of Luo Yu before suddenly shattering. The fragments dissipated into the air bit by bit. Immediately after, Rainer let out a piercing scream. Her arms were twisted like a pretzel by something invisible, her bones snapping with cracking sounds, and she suffered severe internal injuries. She spat out mouthfuls of blood. She widened her eyes, staring fixedly at Luo Yu. He was clearly just a lowly human. Rainer, are you okay? Several magic circles lit up, and a few fallen angels landed beside Rainer. One of them barked at a blonde girl nearby. Hurry, heal her. At the same time, these people stared at Luo Yu vigilantly. Yes. The blonde girl was as timid as a little lamb, shrinking her neck as she used her sacred gear to heal Rainer. A smile of ambiguous meaning curled at the corner of Luo Yu's mouth. It was her. A fated encounter. Even though that fool pure-blooded devil had already been killed by him, she had still been expelled from the church, run to Kuo town, and ended up under the fallen angels. Fool human, how dare you? A middle-aged looking fallen angel was just about to curse. Before he could finish, Luo Yu spat out two words, noisy. The middle-aged fallen angel let out a terrified scream, and his entire body exploded on the spot, turning into a mist of blood. The fallen angels nearby were all stunned. Luo Yu didn't give them a chance to be stunned. One after another, as if they had time bombs installed in their bodies, they all exploded on the spot, turning into mists of blood. Monster! Monster! Rainer's eyes were filled with fear. Gritting her teeth, she pushed the only remaining blonde girl beside her toward Luo Yu, intending to use her as a shield, while she turned, spread her wings, and flew away desperately. Unfortunately, just as she flew into midair, she felt a massive energy expanding within her, and her body was about to give out. No, don't. The smell of blood in the park was thick and unshakable, as if someone had soaked the entire air in blood. Fortunately, the fallen angels had set up a barrier beforehand, leaving no ordinary people around, otherwise, this scene would have surely scared someone to death. Are you Lord Holy Dragon? The little blonde girl in Luo Yu's arms looked up, her voice light and timid, her blue eyes blinking as she looked at him. You know me. Luo Yu casually wiped the memory of the unconscious Hyodo Issei lying on the ground and looked down at Asia Argento. That's right. This blonde girl was Asia Argento, who possessed a sacred gear called Twilight Healing and was originally a saint of the church. But now, she had long been expelled by the church and was called a witch by everyone. As for that Lord Holy Dragon, she called out. Luo Yu remembered. He had previously snuck into the mirror lake of light on the 7th level of heaven and happened to catch a perverted priest bullying her, so he saved her on a whim. He hadn't expected this girl to recognize him at a glance, mind you, he had been in his dragon form at the time. This little girl was, by all accounts, just a normal person, or at most a normal person with a sacred gear. It was this child who smelled your scent. Asia Argento's face turned red, and she stood up from Luo Yu's arms. A flash of golden light appeared at her feet, and a unicorn cub walked out of the magic circle, staring timidly at Luo Yu. So it was you, little thing. Luo Yu smiled. He had almost forgotten that holy beasts like the unicorn are particularly sensitive to scents, let alone that he hadn't deliberately hidden his own. Just because Rainer and those fallen angels couldn't smell it didn't mean they could evade this unicorn's nose, even if it was still young. I didn't expect this little guy to have followed you out. Luo Yu looked at the unicorn cub lying at Asia Argento's feet. Generally speaking, whether it's a nun or an exorcist, once expelled by the church, the contracted holy beasts or divine beasts will automatically break the contract and return directly to heaven, and they won't be able to sign a second time in their lifetime. Lord Holy Dragon, Asia Argento lowered her head, like a child who had caused trouble, sneaking glances at Luo Yu. She had already been kicked out of the church and was now a witch chased by everyone. Would Lord Holy Dragon despise her? Luo Yu smiled and reached out to rub her head, his movements very gentle, which slowly settled her heart. This girl was kind-hearted, and no one who met her would dislike her. Don't be afraid, you didn't do anything wrong. If you must say someone is wrong, it's God. Luo Yu's words were not false at all. If God hadn't fallen, the heaven system wouldn't have had so many loopholes. How could someone as pure as Asia Argento be expelled as a witch? Lord Holy Dragon. Asia Argento just wanted to speak. A dark red magic circle suddenly lit up before them, and Rias Grimori's figure walked out from within. Luo Yu. Rias Grimori was stunned when she saw Luo Yu. Immediately after, she noticed the unconscious Hyodo Issei on the ground, and her expression darkened immediately. She could clearly feel that the sacred gear on that guy was gone. Luo Yu, shouldn't you explain the current situation? Explain. Luo Yu glanced at Rias Grimori, his tone indifferent. What do you want me to explain? Is it the sacred gear on this guy, or the corpses of the fallen angels around here? Regardless of which one, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. You. Rias Grimori clenched her fists, staring fixedly at Luo Yu. This guy clearly knew that the Hyodo Issei lying on the ground was the candidate for her servant she had set her sights on. He had snatched the guy's sacred gear, yet he was still so righteous. You wanted him to be your servant, and I just happened to need the sacred gear on him. But Rias Grimori, some things aren't yours just because you think they are. Now that the item is in my hands, I naturally don't need to explain anything to you. What, do you think with your abilities, you can snatch it back from my hands? Luo Yu's words made Rias Grimori's expression increasingly ugly. This fool was full of twisted logic. She had observed the child on the ground for so long and had originally planned to reincarnate him into a devil in the next few days. As a result, she had been intercepted by this guy. How could she not be angry? Luo Yu couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the livid Rias Grimori and turned to leave with Asia Argento. All the fallen angels in Kuo town had been wiped out by him, and Asia Argento had nowhere to go. He couldn't just leave her outside. Rias Grimori gritted her teeth, watching Luo Yu's back. She dreamed of slapping that face hard a few times. Unfortunately, she could only think about it. Rias Grimori looked down at Hyodo Issei on the ground and turned to leave. She had to hurry and find a new servant. There wasn't enough time. The sacred gear was no longer on this guy, so he was just an ordinary person. Wasting a devil piece on him wasn't worth it at all. In the first floor hall of the villa, Sona looked with a puzzled expression at the girl sitting next to Luo Yu. The girl was obviously a little nervous, her body shrinking, her eyes dodging. Especially the nun's habit she was wearing, which didn't fit the atmosphere here at all. Luo Yu, is she a nun? From the church? Sona asked tentatively. The aura of faith was too strong. They, as devils, were most sensitive to this. Only devout believers who came from the church would have this scent. Her name is Asia Argento. She used to be a saint of the church, but now she's been expelled. I met her once and brought her back. Luo Yu said it lightly, briefly explaining Asia Argento's background. Hello everyone. Asia Argento bowed slightly and greeted them very politely. A saint. Sona and Tsubaki Shinra looked at each other. They hadn't expected this girl to have such a background, actually being a former saint of the church. Even if she was a former one. But bringing a saint into their devil's den, was that really okay? Asia Argento, you should also be able to feel that, except for Ophis, they are all devils. Asia Argento nodded. Just as devils could perceive people from the church, devout believers like her could also vaguely sense the presence of devils. However, she didn't understand why Lord Holy Dragon would mix with devils. But in her view, devils weren't necessarily bad. Angels weren't necessarily right either. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been expelled by the church for healing an injured devil. Luo Yu briefly recounted the ins and outs of Asia Argento being expelled from the church. After hearing this, Sona and the others looked at Asia Argento with a bit more sympathy. Expelled from the church for healing an injured devil. This girl was too kind-hearted. Just as Luo Yu said, there really weren't many people who would dislike a girl as pure and kind as Asia Argento. Everyone introduced themselves to each other. Asia Argento felt that they had no ill intentions, and a long-lost smile finally appeared on her face. Sona planned to help Asia Argento with admission procedures in a couple of days so she could attend Kuo Academy. Based on her age, Asia Argento was in the same grade as Tsubaki Shinra and the others. Butler Izumi was efficient and quickly tidied up a room. That was how Asia Argento moved in. Perhaps because she had experienced too much during the day, Asia Argento was, after all, a human and didn't have the physical constitution of devils like Sona and the others. Seeing the weariness on her face, Luo Yu told her to go and rest first. The church actually expelled a girl as pure and kind as Asia Argento. Isn't it just because she has a sacred gear, twilight healing, that can heal devils? This reason is just too outrageous. Tsubaki Shinra felt frustrated for Asia Argento. After just this short time together, everyone had a very good impression of Asia Argento. It wasn't just Tsubaki Shinra who couldn't understand it. Momo Hanakai and Ruruko Nomura couldn't figure it out either. It wasn't that they knew any inside information, they just felt that the church's rule was far too rigid and severely contradictory. They had heard about it from Luo Yu. Sacred gears themselves were abilities bestowed upon humanity by God. With a sacred gear, even if a human's body was weak, they could still contend with races like devils and fallen angels. Since it was a creation of God, a gift from God, this ability shouldn't be treated as heresy. Asia Argento using twilight healing to heal devils might have violated the church's commandments. But the fundamental reason she was kicked out of the church was that this sacred gear could heal not only humans and angels, but also devils and fallen angels. The church labeled this as heretical power, kicked her out, and even slapped the dirty label of witch on her. The church has always seemed to be like that, Sona said, frowning. She remembered that the church's rules had always been harsh, and it wasn't the first time a devout believer like Asia Argento had been cast out. Sometimes she found it strange, but this was, after all, an internal matter of the church. She would just listen and leave it at that. It wasn't her place as a devil to interfere. Actually, there's nothing strange about it, the problem lies at the root, Luo Yu said nonchalantly. The root. Something happened in heaven, Sona repeated, murmuring with a confused face. The words, heaven, immediately popped into the minds of Tsubaki Shinra, Rei Kusaka, and Momo Hanakai as well. After all, the church was ultimately under the jurisdiction of heaven. This matter might seem insignificant, but it's not as simple as you think. Master, stop keeping us in suspense, just tell us, Tsubaki Shinra urged anxiously. It's not wrong to say the root is in heaven. To be more precise, it's God who has a problem. God. Just that one word. But to a pure-blooded devil like Sona, the weight of it was terrifying. There were many gods, big and small, in the three realms, but there was only one who could truly be called God. That was the one and only true God who governed all miracles. The devils in the underworld would tremble just hearing that name. God, could it be that he is sick? Tsubaki Shinra joked, her tone light. Luo Yu's expression darkened, and he spoke in a very low voice. No. God has already fallen. Sona's mind went blank instantly. Tsubaki Shinra and the others looked at each other, their eyes full of disbelief. The highest ranking being in the three realms had actually fallen. If these words hadn't come from Luo Yu, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. Luo Yu, what exactly happened? Sona's voice changed from anxiety, she felt as if her worldview had been shattered. In the Great War, it wasn't just the first generation four great demon kings who died. God also fell in that battle. Luo Yu did not reveal the true reason for God's fall. That matter was too heavy for Sona and the others to bear. In any case, the fact was, God was indeed gone. This was not a secret at all in the three realms. Then, Sona wanted to keep asking. With such a huge event as the fall of God, how had she not heard even a whisper of it? The Church, or rather, God, controls half of the faith in the world. Before the Great War, this proportion was even higher. Do you think that if the news of God's fall spread, humanity would collapse first, or the world would end first? Sona fell silent. Indeed, there was nothing more desperate than the collapse of faith. Therefore, the higher-ups of the three factions of the three realms suppressed this news together. With God gone, relying on Michael alone to operate the heaven system would eventually lead to problems. Complications from sacred gears are the warning signs. A child like Asia Argento who possesses a sacred gear that heals devils would only drag down the operation of the heaven system if she remained in the church. For those who know the truth of God's fall, like Asia Argento, as long as they hinder the heaven system, they will sooner or later be kicked out of the church. After Luo Yu finished speaking, Sona and the others all fell silent. They needed time to properly digest this information. Asia Argento had been living in the villa for over a week. Sona and the others had also slowly accepted the explosive news that God has fallen. Luo Yu had specifically instructed that this matter must not be spoken of outside. Especially to Asia Argento. That child's faith was too pure, too devout. He was truly afraid she wouldn't be able to handle the blow. He couldn't hide it forever, but he could hide it for as long as he could. In the early morning, the villa garden was filled with cool air. Tsubaki Shinra, and Yura Tsubasa were practicing physical techniques, their movements clean and crisp. On the other side, Rei Kusaka, Ruruko Nomura, and Momo Hanakai were practicing arcane magic, with magical energy fluctuations constantly bursting between their palms. These were all taught by Luo Yu, which counted as helping Sona's servants improve their combat power. Kaneko wasn't there. Kuroka had been taking her to practice senjutsu in real combat these past few days, and who knew which stray devil they were targeting now. Asia Argento was running around in the crowd, looking very serious, using twilight healing to help Tsubaki Shinra and the others treat the minor injuries they sustained during training. She had a warm personality, she couldn't help with big things, but she was quite enthusiastic about this small task. Momo Hanakai was quite satisfied seeing this scene. After all, the healing effect of Asia Argento's sacred gear was more than a notch stronger than ordinary healing arcane magic. In the distance, Luo Yu and Sona sat face to face playing chess, their eyes occasionally glancing at the training field. Luo Yu captured one of Sona's white rooks, calculating in his heart whether he should make another trip to the underworld in a few days to get a few artificial sacred gears from Azazel. He remembered that, according to the original trajectory, Azazel did later equip each of Sona's servants with an artificial sacred gear. Whether it was the original sacred gears created by gods or the artificial sacred gears tinkered with by Azazel, in the end, it all depended on people slowly honing and developing them. It was just that the growth limit of artificial sacred gears was indeed a bit lower. However, getting them sooner was always a good thing. What's the matter, tempted? Luo Yu noticed that Sona was a bit distracted, her gaze fixed on Asia Argento. When Luo Yu said this, Sona reacted. She smiled and replied, "That child Asia Argento has the sacred gear, twilight healing, this thing is quite rare among healing types. If she could join our raiding game team, the sustained combat capability of Tsubaki and the others would definitely go up a notch." She paused and added, "It's just that I don't know if Asia Argento herself is willing. Let her make up her own mind about this." Luo Yu's tone was very flat. Sona nodded. Naturally, she wouldn't force anyone. The matter of finding servants, to put it plainly, was about finding partners to fight side by side with, comrades who could entrust their backs to each other. The two were preparing to finish the game. Just at that moment, a weak yet familiar aura suddenly slammed into Luo Yu's perception range. Although the aura was so weak it was almost about to break, the foundation was clearly at the super devil level. Luo Yu stood up abruptly, his gaze locking onto the northern horizon. "Luo Yu, what happened?" Sona noticed that something was wrong with him and quickly asked. But before her voice had even faded, the space in the direction Luo Yu was staring at was torn open as if by someone's hands. A figure rushed out, bringing with it a sacred aura. That aura scraped against their faces, making the skin of Sona and the others feel a stinging pain. That person flew straight toward the villa where Luo Yu was. He was wearing a suit of golden armor, but it was already broken beyond recognition. There was a huge hole directly in the chest area. 6 pairs of golden wings were unfurled behind him, but they were entangled with black baleful energy, which was eroding his vitality bit by bit. He was still clutching a broken spear in his hand. This is a seraph. Sona and the others couldn't help but exclaim. 6 pairs of wings, that was the mark of a seraph of heaven. How many people in the 3 realms could injure a seraph like this? Not a seraph. Luo Yu's expression darkened. A sense of killing intent and anger even showed in his eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, Luo Yu rushed up and caught the person. After seeing Luo Yu's face, the man seemed to have finally relaxed like a taut string, a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, and then he passed out directly. Sona stepped forward, watching Luo Yu gently place the man suspected of being a seraph on the ground, and only then did she see his face clearly. A very young face. It felt somewhat familiar. This was Cao Cao, the Saint Emperor Cao Cao among the 4 great emperors. How could he be injured like this? And Cao Cao was supposed to be a human. But what was with those 6 pairs of golden wings behind him? That is the balance breaker of the true Longinus. Luo Yu's voice was very low. He released the power of the god dwelling within the true Longinus. Since it was the power of a god, turning into the appearance of a seraph wasn't too surprising. It was just that Cao Cao shouldn't have been able to use the balance breaker in the first place. Because the spear contained the resentment of the god, it was simply not something a human could control. What was more critical was, within the 3 realms, who on earth could beat Cao Cao, who had already unleashed his balance breaker and was a genuine super devil, into such a state. Asia Argento hurried over, her hands glowing with a faint light, chanting twilight healing to treat Cao Cao's injuries. However, when that healing light fell on Cao Cao, the wounds didn't change at all. Luo Yu sensed something was wrong. She perceived a baleful aura inside Cao Cao, which was frantically devouring his vitality. If this power wasn't removed, let alone healing his injuries, Cao Cao would be completely dead before long. This aura was somewhat familiar. It was the power of the Beast King. Luo Yu didn't know how Cao Cao had provoked such an existence. But the most pressing matter now was to save him first, everything else had to be put aside. Seal it for me. Directly extracting the power of the Beast King would be equivalent to fighting another battle inside Cao Cao's body. If things went wrong, it would add injury to injury, and he would be ruined on the spot. Using arcane magic to seal it was safer. Dozens of sealing runes flew out, instantly locking down the baleful energy that was rampaging inside Cao Cao, and then slowly drawing it out. Just this small bit of power was nothing to Luo Yu. Asia Argento, continue healing. Asia Argento nodded and cast the healing spell again. This time, the external wounds on Cao Cao's body began to slowly heal. But the trauma to his internal organs and the loss of vitality could not be cured by twilight healing alone. At least his life was saved. The night was very heavy. Kuo town was tightly shrouded in a dark curtain, the moon was hidden behind the clouds, and it was pitch black all around. Inside the villa, the light was on in Luo Yu's room. Cao Cao lay on the bed, his brows furrowed tightly, his hands clenched into fists, as if he were trapped in a nightmare and couldn't get out. He was wrapped in white bandages, with intricate arcane magic patterns carved on each bandage, which were slowly repairing the damage inside his body and regenerating the consumed vitality. The true Longinus leaned against the window. Its shaft had already reverted from its balance breaker state. However, the spear was still heavily damaged, its surface was dull, and several fine cracks had appeared. It looked like it would need some serious repairs. Suddenly, the person on the bed snapped his eyes open. Cao Cao's eyes were bloodshot, and the fierce, murderous aura on his face had yet to fade. Awake. Cao Cao froze and looked toward the source of the voice. Upon seeing Luo Yu, he remained silent for a long while, his eyes filled only with desolation. Luo Yu pulled up a chair and sat by the bedside. What's with that expression? You look like you've lost your soul. That's not like the Cao Cao I know. In his memory, Cao Cao was the Saint Emperor who, with nothing but a mortal body, had forcefully dominated all manners of gods and demons. But now, this person looked ashen-faced and dim-eyed. Cao Cao remained silent for a long time before squeezing a few words out of his throat, his voice as raspy as if it had been rubbed with sandpaper. The hero faction. I am the only one left. Luo Yu was not too surprised. With Cao Cao injured to this extent, it would be strange if the hero faction were still unscathed. However, looking across the three realms, the factions capable of pushing the hero faction and Cao Cao to this point could be counted on one hand. Not to mention, once the true Longinus, in his hand activated its balance breaker, his combat power would soar directly to the super devil level, firmly standing in the second sequence. Azazel had said that the design blueprints for that thing were originally based on a king-class Longinus. Unfortunately, it lacked the final polish, leaving it stuck as a semi-finished product. The most likely possibility remained the superficial reason. Cao Cao and the hero faction had foolishly provoked the Beast Emperor 666. However, Luo Yu didn't think Cao Cao was stupid enough to do that. He was mentally filtering through the factions that might have attacked Cao Cao when, in the next second, the words that tumbled out of Cao Cao's mouth caused him to freeze completely. Luo Yu even suspected he had misheard. With his current strength, the probability of auditory hallucinations was so low it could be ignored. Cao Cao, is what you just said true? He had heard it clearly. Cao Cao was not the type to spout nonsense at a time like this. Cao Cao nodded heavily, his eyes not wavering in the slightest. Wait. A buzzing sensation exploded in Luo Yu's head. It was just like the expression Sona and the others had when he told them that a god had fallen. Now it was his turn. He needed to catch his breath. The eastern Mount Sumeru suddenly closed its borders a while ago. This was rumored throughout the three realms. But due to Indra's pressure, no one dared to investigate what had happened. You mean to say, the moment Mount Sumeru closed its borders was the beginning of the slaughter. During this time, aside from you, Indra, Jade Dragon, the first son Wukong, they are all gone. This news was enough to shake the three realms. Mount Sumeru was one of the top-ranked factions among the mainstream pantheons of the three realms. Under the leadership of that warmonger Indra, its comprehensive strength far exceeded major factions like the Greek pantheon and the Norse pantheon, ranking only below the Hindu pantheon. Such a behemoth had been wiped out just like that, without a sound. Not a whisper of news had leaked out. The more Luo Yu thought about it, the more his back chilled. It was simply bone-chilling. He truly couldn't imagine who else in the three realms could have such ability, to make the entire Mount Sumeru disappear completely without a single disturbance. This was on a completely different level from when the four great emperors joined forces to destroy the underworld. Unless, Luo Yu stared at Cao Cao, his voice sinking, did the Beast Emperor break its seal? If it were the Beast Emperor, that would make sense. He knew very well just how terrifying the Beast Emperor was. If the Beast Emperor really had broken free and attacked Mount Sumeru while it was still in lockdown, wiping the entire mountain from the three realms in a short time and returning everything to silence was indeed not impossible. But Cao Cao shook his head. This was indeed done by the Beast Emperor, but its main body did not break through the seal of that god. Cao Cao's expression was serious as he continued, when that god fought the Beast Emperor back then, he cut off a portion of its flesh. Luo Yu remembered this. In the memory fragments left by Michael, it was clear, the Beast Emperor had several heads, and that God had severed them one by one with a single sword. But that thing was simply an immortal monster, the heads would grow back shortly after falling off. At the time, no one had paid much attention to that severed flesh. Now it seemed that the disaster at Mount Sumeru was inseparable from that flesh the Beast Emperor had left behind in the three realms. As expected, the Beast Emperor's immortality is countless times stronger than that of the Dragon Kings and Heavenly Dragons, and its flesh constantly regenerates. Among the pantheons that cleaned up the battlefield back then were Mount Sumeru and the Norse pantheon. They collected this flesh and sealed it together. And the place where it was sealed was Mount Sumeru. Cao Cao paused. The Beast Emperor's flesh sealed beneath Mount Sumeru slowly condensed into a clone of the Beast Emperor over the long years. The reason your master sealed the entire Mount Sumeru before was to gather the power of the whole mountain to reinforce the seal. Indra's temper was the same as Cao Cao's. He was stubborn his whole life and would never ask others for help. After hearing this, Luo Yu couldn't help but sigh. The Beast Emperor is truly a monster through and through. Just a bit of scrap flesh could stir up such a huge mess. So you're saying Mount Sumeru didn't completely suppress that clone of the Beast Emperor 666, let it slip away, and that's what caused this catastrophe. When Cao Cao reached this point, a bone-chilling cold leaked from his eyes. He gritted his teeth, his voice sounding as if it were squeezed through the gaps. We had clearly reinforced the seal on the Beast Emperor 666 clone until it was seamless, but right at the final step, a mysterious dark shadow broke into Mount Sumeru, directly tore open the seal, and let that monster loose. A dark shadow. To be able to sneak into Mount Sumeru at such a critical moment, tamper with things right under the noses of Indra and his people, and easily tear open the seal, one must definitely possess super devil level strength. Moreover, this person was likely no worse than Indra, perhaps even stronger. Looking across the entire three realms, there were not many super devils above Indra. If one were to ask who was so obsessed with the Beast Emperor 666, only one person jumped into Luo Yu's mind. The god of destruction, Shiva. Flames of hatred burned in Cao Cao's eyes as he nodded heavily. When that guy was breaking the seal and fighting my master, he didn't use his signature power of destruction. But some attack habits cannot be hidden. Moreover, the reason I could unleash the balance breaker within the true Longinus was because the resentment of the god of death inside it sensed his aura and resonated with me. A mystery in Luo Yu's heart was finally solved. The only ones who could make the remnant resentment of that god of death within the true Longinus resonate with Cao Cao were the 6 super devils who had ambushed and killed the god in ancient times. Hades, god of the underworld, had already fallen, leaving 5. The Hindu pantheon occupied 3 of those seats, and the other 2 simply could not support that level of combat power. To covet the power of the Beast Emperor 666, Shiva had actually gone this insane, destroying the entire Mount Sumeru. Just thinking about it made him feel cold. Perhaps he had done it on purpose from the start. The relationship between Indra and the Hindu pantheon had always been very tense, almost to the point of being hostile. Shiva had simply used the blade of the Beast Emperor 666 to completely remove this thorn in his side, once and for all. This lingering trouble actually included Cao Cao. It was just that Shiva probably hadn't expected Cao Cao to be able to escape alive. Before my master died, while sending me out, he sealed the entire Mount Sumeru. He used the whole mountain as a seal to trap the Beast Emperor 666 inside. When Cao Cao finished speaking, his tone was full of pain. He usually acted like a slacker toward Indra, doing whatever he wanted, but in the end, he had come out of Mount Sumeru. Indra was the mentor who had pulled him step by step from a weakling to who he was today. This point was the same as the relationship between Luo Yu and Didrag. Then what do you plan to do next? Luo Yu asked. Luo Yu knew very well what Cao Cao wanted. But the problem was, even if he used the balance breaker of the true Longinus, wanting to storm the Hindu pantheon and wipe out Indra and those guys from Mount Sumeru was simply unrealistic. Let alone him alone, even if all the 4 great emperors went, they wouldn't necessarily be a match for the Hindu pantheon. The boosted gear, activating its limit heavenly dragon form, could indeed hold off the god of destruction Shiva, that was no problem. But below Shiva, there were 2 more super devils at the level of supreme gods, whose strength was second only to Shiva. As for whether those 2 had reached the 3rd sequence of super devils, no one could say for sure. After all, it had been too long since they had seen them take action. Back when they ambushed a certain god, Shiva was the main force, although those 2 had also taken action, one couldn't gauge their depth at all. I'm going to heaven. Cao Cao's tone was firm, without a shred of hesitation. Luo Yu was not surprised at all. Cao Cao wanted to borrow the power of heaven, which was just right, both sides had the same goal. Michael and the others had always wanted to settle accounts with Shiva and his group, to avenge the ambush on the god in ancient times. And what Cao Cao wanted to do was exactly on that same line. Tomorrow, I will personally take you to heaven. Rest for now. After Luo Yu finished speaking, he raised his hand and cast a sleep arcane magic spell on Cao Cao's forehead. Cao Cao did not dodge, slowly closing his eyes and falling into a deep sleep. He knew well what state his body was in, he truly needed a good sleep. Luo Yu walked out of the room and saw Sona standing at the door, her face showing a hint of worry. He reassured her with a few words, then his tone became serious. Sona, you cannot tell anyone about today's events, not even your sister Sarafal. I will inform Tsubaki and the others. Sona nodded in agreement. To be able to make Luo Yu show such an expression, the matter must definitely be significant. Luo Yu sighed inwardly. The Angel's revenge plan had dragged all 4 of them into it. Besides Kuroka, Valley also had Sun Wukong by his side. Sun Wukong was from Mount Sumeru, so it was impossible for Valley not to be dragged in. Although Ophis was also there, neither Cao Cao nor Luo Yu had mentioned this to her, nor had they even considered asking Ophis to help with the revenge. The 4 of them had gathered together because of Ophis's power. But unlike the old Satan faction, they were simply attracted to Ophis, not wanting to use her power to cause chaos. Whether it was revenge or doing other things, it had to be accomplished by their own will. Letting Ophis do it for them would have no meaning. Half a year later. The next day. The 8th level of the Heavens Temple. That guy Shiva is truly afraid that the world won't be in chaos. Is the Beast Emperor something he can covet? It was not just Michael in the Great Hall. Giulio Gesualdo was also there, his tone full of anger. Michael's expression was also not good. The Beast Emperor was a forbidden object sealed by God himself. Shiva had actually dared to set his sights on it and had indirectly destroyed Mount Sumeru. Was Shiva trying to provoke a war to gain the initiative before heaven could act, or was it purely to seize the Beast Emperor's power? Michael pondered in his heart. Cao Cao, however, took a few extra looks at Giulio Gesualdo. Or more accurately, at the 6 pairs of golden wings on his back. Giulio Gesualdo previously had 5 pairs of wings, but now they had become 6, and his aura had also broken through to the early stage of the Super Devil King class. It was just as Luo Yu had guessed earlier. Michael had exhausted some of heaven's heritage, or perhaps a trump card left behind by God, and used a method akin to an initiation to forcibly raise Giulio Gesualdo by a major realm. If it truly came to a fight, once Giulio Gesualdo activated the balance breaker of Zenith Tempest, his combat power should be able to soar directly to the first tier of the Super Devil level. Let's calculate. Giulio Gesualdo and Valley were both combatants of the first tier of the Super Devil level. Cao Cao was of the second tier of the Super Devil level. The strongest, Luo Yu, stood firmly at the third tier of the Super Devil level. With this power, the Angel's revenge plan might not be as hopeless as Michael and the others had imagined. Of course, many things could not be judged solely by their appearance. Michael knew this, and Luo Yu understood it as well. Once the revenge plan began, the things it would draw out would be beyond what a few pantheons could handle. Shiva dared to ambush even God and even go for the kill, let alone the Beast Emperor. Luo Yu's tone was very calm. At his level, there are only 2 things he truly cares about. One is the Pantheon, and the other is his own power. In fact, power weighs more in his heart than the Pantheon. So what if the Pantheon is destroyed? As long as he is strong enough, he can, like God, recreate an entire Pantheon on his own. Michael listened and nodded inwardly. This sounded cold-blooded. But it was indeed the truth. A devil, a god, or a dragon could sometimes support an entire pantheon. Their existence directly determined whether the entire pantheon would continue to exist or be completely extinguished. Luo Yu stared at Michael, his tone so heavy it could crush someone. Michael, now the 4 of us, whether you jumped in willingly or were dragged into it, are all going to be pulled into this chaotic brawl with the main god as the catalyst. He paused, his gaze not shifting. There are some things you angels need to be upfront with me about. When do you plan to act, how will you act, and what trump cards does heaven still have? I don't want to blindly fight a battle that can't be won. And I certainly don't want to throw my life away holding onto the foolish notion of, everyone dies together to be buried with the main god. Cao Cao's expression was calm, showing no fluctuation. But Giulio Gesualdo beside him changed expression, his mouth moving as if he wanted to say something. Michael raised a hand to stop him. Red Dragon Emperor, before you were dragged into this, all the angels of heaven were proceeding with the mindset of, dying in battle for God. Whether it was sacrificing heaven or something else, that was the direction. His tone was very heavy. But it's different now. Now we at least have a way out. At the very least, we can let the seeds of angels participating in the battle, like Giulio Gesualdo, survive. Among the hybrid angels of heaven, Giulio Gesualdo was not the only one to make this choice. Almost all the hybrid angels chose the same path. What made them choose this was, on one hand, their faith in the main God, and on the other, more importantly, the bond they shared with heaven. Master, I. Before Giulio Gesualdo could finish, he was cut off by Michael. Shut up. Do you really want the entire angel race, and even the entire heaven, to be completely finished? This guy, who usually had the best temper in the 3 realms, had a rare flash of anger on his face at this moment. Luo Yu and Cao Cao exchanged a look. Some things hadn't been spelled out, but the message had been conveyed. Michael and the angels created by the main god's own hands, in the end, still wanted to follow the main god. It was just that now they wanted to keep the seeds of hybrid angels like Giulio Gesualdo, to preserve the angel lineage for the main god and for the 3 realms. Giulio Gesualdo's face was filled with sorrow. He wanted to fight to the death for heaven, but his master wouldn't let him. Subsequently, Michael pushed all the information regarding the layout for the Great War into the minds of Luo Yu and Cao Cao in the form of memory fragments. Half a year from now. Luo Yu glanced through it quickly, and his brows furrowed. This timeline was much earlier than he had initially thought. This is just a rough estimate. Some plans will be adjusted because of your participation, and the timing will change accordingly. After all, Luo Yu, Cao Cao, plus Dulio Gesualdo meant that 3 combatants of the Super Devil level had appeared out of thin air. No one dared to treat this weight lightly. After discussing matters in heaven, Luo Yu did not stay long and left directly. He did not return to Kuo town. Instead, he flew towards the east of the human world. He had to go check on Mount Sumeru. The scene before him was nothing but ruins. Those fairy pavilions and jade towers that once stood in the clouds had completely collapsed. The spirit springs had dried up, the fairy mountains had crumbled, and it had become a dead zone. The ground was covered in corpses. There were gods, soldiers, fairy beasts, and spirit beasts. Severed limbs and broken arms were scattered everywhere. Blood had drenched the entire land into a dark red. A thick, inseparable baleful aura floated in the sky, as if it wanted to strangle every living thing in the area. I really didn't expect Mount Sumeru to become like this. Luo Yu stood high in the sky, looking down at the tragic scene beneath his feet. Didrake's voice emerged from his mind, carrying a hint of lament. Mount Sumeru had long since sealed itself. Before Luo Yu left, Cao Cao had shoved a key into his hand, saying it could open the seal. Otherwise, he would have to force his way in, and if that happened, the clone trapped in the mountain would certainly escape. But, what about that thing? Did it run? Luo Yu frowned and scanned the area. The air was filled with the smell of that baleful aura, and everything was corroding and collapsing, but he didn't see even a shadow of that clone. It was suppressed by Indra in the deepest part. The voice was weak, as if squeezed out from between teeth. Luo Yu flashed over immediately. A giant cyan dragon was hanging on the mountain, its body already broken into 2 halves, no less than 100 zhong long. Black gas coiled around its body like a poisonous snake, gnawing away all its vitality. There was a final glimmer of light left in the dragon's eyes, not yet completely extinguished. It was the West Sea Dragon child, Jade Dragon. Luo Yu wasn't very surprised. After all, this guy was one of the 5 great dragon kings of the 3 realms. If he really died completely, the dragon race in the 3 realms would all sense it. Just like when his own bloodline rose to the Dragon King level back then. However, Jade Dragon couldn't hold on for long. Luo Yu saw it clearly. That guy's origin soul was already thoroughly rotten. The baleful aura was burrowing in like a worm, nibbling away at his origin dragon soul bit by bit. Even the immortality that was said to be beyond even the gods could not withstand the power of that clone. This made Luo Yu's heart tighten. If even the origin dragon soul couldn't hold up, just how wicked was that thing? That kid Cao Cao really did run. It hadn't been in vain for Indra and the first generation. Mount Sumeru had at least left behind its final seedling. A flash of relief crossed the depths of Jade Dragon's eyes. Red Dragon Emperor had entered Mount Sumeru using the key in Cao Cao's hand, which meant the person was already safe, and that guy Shiva hadn't managed to intercept and kill him. Rest assured, once Cao Cao reaches heaven, nothing else will happen. Heaven is a good place, at the very least, it's safe. Jade Dragon didn't know why Red Dragon Emperor had arranged for Cao Cao to go to heaven, but staying there was better than being killed by Shiva. He, the first generation, and Indra had never thought of having Cao Cao avenge them. Going to such great lengths to rescue him from the Beast Emperor was simply because they wanted him to live and not let the lineage of Mount Sumeru go extinct. Red Dragon Emperor, this is for you. An iron ring flew out from Jade Dragon's body and landed in Luo Yu's palm. This is energy crystals. In the spatial ring in Luo Yu's hand, there was a space as large as a football field. It was packed full of energy crystals. It was more than 3 or 4 times what he had obtained from wiping out the old Satan faction last time. This was likely the last of Mount Sumeru's assets. There were originally more crystals, but unfortunately, most of them were destroyed while fighting that clone of the Beast Emperor. That guy is a complete monster. Jade Dragon was about to breathe his last, but he still couldn't help but shiver when mentioning the Beast Emperor. Indra's intention was for you to help Cao Cao at a critical moment. Besides, you also seem to be quite in need of this stuff. Luo Yu did not decline and put the items away. He needed a large amount of energy crystals to cut off the origin gold pattern. Besides, being falsely polite to someone who was about to die was too hypocritical. If Cao Cao plans to rebuild Mount Sumeru, I will definitely help with all my might. Hearing this from Luo Yu, Jade Dragon was finally at ease. He had held on for so long, and what he was waiting for was this promise from the Red Dragon Emperor. The Beast Emperor's clone is sealed by Indra in the deepest part of Mount Sumeru. using the entire mountain as a cage, so it won't be able to come out for a while. Unfortunately, the Beast Emperor's precise coordinates still fell into Shiva's hands. As expected, Luo Yu was not surprised by this result at all. Shiva had come for this in the first place. Mount Sumeru, gone overnight. Jade Dragon's voice was full of desolation. Immediately after, his aura grew weaker and weaker. Luo Yu saw it clearly, his origin dragon soul had completely decayed. The West Sea Dragon child, Jade Dragon, one of the 5 great dragon kings, had fallen just like that. Luo Yu looked at the corpse before him and sighed deeply. Subsequently, his figure also disappeared from Mount Sumeru. And just like that, it was over. The secret of Mount Sumeru could no longer be hidden from the moment West Sea Dragon child Jade Dragon breathed his last. The outside world was now in an uproar. Countless dragon clans raised their heads, staring fixedly in the direction of the east. They sensed it, the origin dragon soul of Jade Dragon, one of the 5 great dragon kings, was completely extinguished, not leaving even a scrap behind. A storm erupted in various divine realms. The main gods and god kings of various pantheons, as well as a pile of dragon species, all rushed towards the east, heading straight for Mount Sumeru. They all knew that Mount Sumeru had sealed itself, but Jade Dragon's death indicated that something major had definitely happened inside the mountain. Just as those gods and dragons outside were all fixated on Mount Sumeru. In another place, the dimensional gap. Everywhere here were colorful energy clusters, darting back and forth, making it impossible to tell north from south. If one didn't have a fixed coordinate, walking in here casually would 9 times out of 10 lead to getting completely lost. But at this moment, a figure appeared inside. This is it. It was Luo Yu who spoke. He clutched a glowing pelt in his hand, his feet not stopping, moving at high speed, as if he wasn't worried at all about getting lost in this godforsaken place. After he came out of Mount Sumeru, he hadn't rested for a breath and had charged straight into the dimensional gap. This special place was the territory that had given birth to the Great Red Male and the infinite dragon god Ophis female. The direction pointed to by the pelt in Luo Yu's hand was exactly here. In his eyes, it was not yet time to release the Beast Emperor. The best method was to stabilize the seal. Once that thing truly broke through the seal, no one in the 3 realms could suppress it, and the variables were too great. No matter what method Shiva used, he could not be allowed to steal the Beast Emperor's power. Moreover, they were now mortal enemies. He had to get ahead of Shiva, find the location where Beast Emperor 666 was sealed, move it, or simply block Shiva's path. Luo Yu rushed desperately through the dimensional gap, and after nearly an hour, he finally stopped. We're here. He stared at the scene before him, his heart sinking. The absurdly magnificent 9-layered heaven, the shimmering jade towers, the angels flying across the sky, the believers kneeling in prayer. This sight was exactly the same as the scene he had seen in Michael's memories. It was the eternal kingdom, cast by that deity. However, the pressure radiating from this thing made even Luo Yu feel a chill down his spine. From the highest level of the 9-layered heaven, black malevolent energy constantly spread outwards, as if it wanted to completely devour this eternal kingdom. But every time it reached the lower levels, whether it was the believers, the angels, or the entire heaven itself, a blinding sacred light would burst forth, clearing away those black mists completely. Beast Emperor 666 is sealed on the 9th level. For thousands of years, the eternal kingdom has never stopped for a moment, constantly fighting against the Beast Emperor 666 that wants to break free from the seal. In Michael's memory, his impression of the eternal kingdom cast by that deity was merely a superficial visual image, far less shocking than seeing it with his own eyes. Moreover, the entire eternal kingdom was almost like the heaven, possessing a complete heaven system and defensive mechanisms. Right now, let alone moving it, even if Shiva came to break the seal, Luo Yu felt he wouldn't know where to start. He thought over various feasible methods in his mind, but each one he came up with was immediately dismissed by himself. He realized that he had thought too simply before. Trying to move this deity's eternal kingdom was as difficult as moving the entire heaven of the 3 realms. Is there really no way at all? Luo Yu frowned, slowly approached the incomparably magnificent eternal kingdom, reached out, and lightly touched its surface, which had completely solidified. Just at this moment, his heart jolted violently. He was surprised to find that he could control this eternal kingdom, he could actually control it. He even saw the Beast Emperor 666 sealed on the 9th level. He had a hallucination that as long as he had a thought, all the angels inside could pour out to kill enemies for him, or even release the Beast Emperor 666. Perhaps, this wasn't a hallucination at all. Luo Yu closed his eyes and projected his consciousness into it. After a few breaths, with a loud boom, the massive eternal kingdom actually moved within the dimensional gap. That powerful force crushed all the colorful energy bodies in the surroundings. It wasn't over yet. The entire eternal kingdom was still shrinking bit by bit. It wasn't being compressed by physical force, but rather a compression on a spatial level. The boosted gear on Luo Yu's left hand manifested. Shockingly, the entire eternal kingdom was slowly stuffed into the boosted gear, entering the domain inside the boosted gear. As such a massive eternal kingdom disappeared, even the dimensional gap, which was as still as stagnant water, stirred with ripples. Countless colorful energy bodies deviated from their original trajectories and began to collide with each other. After quite a while, it slowly calmed down. Partner, what on earth is this? Inside the boosted gear, Didrag was full of question marks, completely bewildered. He didn't understand it at all. That was clearly the eternal kingdom, cast by the god of destruction himself, so how did Luo Yu just snatch it away with a wave of his hand and stuff it directly into the boosted gear? Eternal kingdom. Luo Yu slowly opened his eyes, muttering these 4 words, completely ignoring him. At this moment, Luo Yu suddenly realized one thing. This eternal kingdom contained far more things than he had dug up. Back in the heaven, Michael had told him that this divine technique had a special rule. It would only appear to the next holder after the previous one had died. It was just like those sacred gears that continuously inhabited humans, one link after another. But looking at it now, the trick behind this was probably not as simple as what Michael had said. If I'm not mistaken. Luo Yu's mind raced. As long as one is a holder of the top-tier divine technique, Eternal Kingdom, one can absolutely control all eternal kingdoms that have been released. Not just the ones they cast themselves, but even those cast by previous holders. This was the only answer that made sense. Why he could directly snatch away the eternal kingdom, cast by the god of destruction. However, there was still a knot in Luo Yu's heart that hadn't been untied. Why didn't he have this sense of control over the heaven? Wasn't the heaven also created by the god of destruction using eternal kingdom? There must be some hidden truth in this that he didn't know about. Put that aside for now. Luo Yu suppressed the thought. Right now, it was more important to leave the dimensional gap quickly. If he delayed any longer and happened to run into the god of destruction Shiva who also came looking for Beast Emperor 666, that would be troublesome. He had snatched the initiative this time. Most likely, Shiva had been injured by Indra at Mount Sumeru before and was currently holed up in the Hindu pantheon healing, which allowed him to exploit this loophole. After all, Shiva had to hide his identity and didn't dare to go all out, being hesitant and cautious, so it wasn't surprising that he was injured by that martial god Indra. Not to mention that the first generation and Jade Dragon might have also been involved. Although he had activated the limit of the boosted gear's heavenly dragon form and wasn't afraid of Shiva, thinking about killing or sealing the opponent was out of the question. If he were to fight this guy again now, he would have to reveal all his trump cards and wouldn't gain any advantage at all. What's more troublesome is that once he knows, Beast Emperor 666, is in my hands, he might go crazy and do something extreme. Luo Yu wasn't afraid of facing him, but if it affected Sona and the others, that would be bad. With a shift in thought, he was just about to use the coordinates he had left behind to escape from the dimensional gap. Just at this moment, a ridiculously huge red dragon shadow suddenly darted out from the depths of the dimensional gap. Its size was, at the very least, over 10,000 zhong. Those dragon species in the 3 realms that were a few hundred zhong long were nothing compared to this guy. Although being big didn't mean being strong, when it reached a certain size, anyone who saw it would feel a chill in their heart. Great Red. Luo Yu's expression instantly sank. He truly hadn't expected his luck to be this good, to actually run into the Great Red, a ceiling-level existence in this world, within the dimensional gap. He remembered Valley mentioning before that he had chased the tracks of the Great Red in the dimensional gap, but no matter how he searched, it was like looking for a needle in a haystack, and he hadn't even caught a single hair. That dragon, which forever flew in the gap, had never been truly caught by anyone. At most, they had only glimpsed that red shadow from afar at the edge of the gap. Do I count as lucky? I'm not sure. Luo Yu twitched his mouth and shook his head helplessly. The Great Red, which that guy Valley couldn't find despite all his efforts, had actually been encountered by him. He wasn't worried that the other party would attack him. This guy, the Great Red, seemed to have his mind set on flying in the dimensional gap and didn't care about anything else. Those who accidentally entered the gap and encountered it would at most see a special piece of scenery. He had never heard of anyone being attacked by it. Of course, Ophis was the exception. As long as she stepped into the dimensional gap, she would be expelled. Luo Yu planned to wait for the Great Red to fly past him before leaving. But the next moment, a chill ran down his spine. The dragon actually stopped beside him. The dragon head, as big as a mountain, slowly lowered and stared at him. In front of it, Luo Yu was practically like an ant. Immediately after, the dimensional gap suddenly exploded with changes. The surrounding space, scenes like oil paintings, crazily flowed and evolved. After a few breaths, a scene that Luo Yu was all too familiar with appeared before him. Familiar streets. Familiar houses. Everything was familiar. This was none other than Kuo Town. He was standing in the middle of a wide street, but there wasn't a single person around. He couldn't even hear the chirping of birds or the buzzing of insects. It was as dead silent as an empty city, quiet enough to make one's heart hair-raising. I heard that the true Red Dragon God Emperor controls dreams and can freely dive into the deepest desires in people's hearts. Seeing it today, it really has some skills. There wasn't a hint of panic on Luo Yu's face. Instead, he looked around with great interest, speaking slowly. You are calmer than I expected, much stronger than that ancestor of yours. A crisp voice, like the chirping of a bird, rang out. Standing in front of Luo Yu was a girl with long red hair. Her skin was fair and tender, her facial features were exquisitely flawless, and her legs were long and straight. This girl was wearing the Kuo Academy uniform and looked like an ordinary high school girl, but the temperament emanating from her bones was so noble that no one dared to look down on her. I suddenly pulled you over, yet you don't seem very surprised. Did you guess it beforehand, or did you figure it out on the spot? This red-haired beauty was the true Red Dragon God Emperor. This was how she looked when she transformed into human form. Compared to Ophis, her emotions were clearly much richer, which might be related to her power of controlling dreams. I can't say I knew beforehand. You drift around in the dimensional gap, and no one can pinpoint your location. I just guessed a little bit. This is our second meeting, right? The last time was in the underworld. The true Red Dragon God Emperor dragging him into this dream space certainly wasn't for the sake of that Beast Emperor 666 business. That thing was a cataclysm for the three realms, but in her eyes, it was at most worth a glance and wouldn't be taken to heart at all. She wouldn't stop her flight just because Beast Emperor 666 disappeared. Your brain turns fast, on par with that ancestor of yours. Hearing that the true Red Dragon God Emperor knew his cheap ancestor, Luo Yu didn't feel surprised at all. Some things could be understood with a little bit of thinking. At the end of the day, Luo Yu stared at her, his tone suddenly becoming certain. That golden coordinate in the underworld that interested you, you placed it, right? Or rather, you created it. The coordinate he was referring to was the golden mark he had obtained from Oliver in the underworld. Although he hadn't studied that thing much during this time, he knew it clearly in his heart. The only one in this world who could create that kind of golden coordinate was the true Red Dragon God Emperor who forever flew in the dimensional gap. Moreover, given her identity as a world guardian, creating such a coordinate wasn't something unbelievable. Actually, I was quite puzzled at first. Luo Yu looked at the stunningly beautiful face before him and said with a smile, your appearance has actually connected all the dots. That's the end of part 7. Part 8 is coming soon.
Thanks for watching my video. Please like and share it.